Larson behind the glass producing this program today. How's your Monday? How we doing? How we doing, guys? Bring it in. Big group hug. Rough Monday. Kind of all the way around, depending on your local sports fandom. Luckily, BYU continues to play really well. For Ute fans, it's not going to do much for you. RSL is in the Major League Soccer playoffs that starts tomorrow. So a couple local teams winning, but most local teams losing. The Utah Hockey Club, 3 straight losses now, 3 goals in 3 games after scoring 16 goals in their first 3 games. We're going to do a little Utah Hockey Club on the program today, do a little RSL. Of course, Utah football is stunned. I don't know what to say, man. Like, we were talking about this during Crosstalk with OC. I've been wrong often, and I'm fine admitting that. I don't know that I've ever been as wrong about a team as I've been about this Utah football team. 4 straight losses. You guys know the deal. I am stunned they lost to Houston, but at this point, maybe that's a me problem. Last week, I was the guy that was holding on to the last branch before falling face down in the mud, and today, I am face down in the mud. I don't know what I don't know how to spin it, man. It is odd, but give BYU a lot of credit as they moved 8-0. They're a top 10 team now. Number 9 in the country. Both teams now on a bye before they're going to play up here. 8:15 kick time, unfortunately, so it's going to be a late game. Don't love that, but down the stretch we come. College football continues to be pretty interesting from a national standpoint. We'll get to some college football takeaways, Big 12 takeaways on the program. Your pro football weekend will wrap up tonight. We get Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones. Monday Night Football. I'm also a Yankee fan. The Dodgers are up 2-0. I'm also a Jets fan. They lost to the Patriots. So, how's your Monday? From a sports perspective, mine's not great, but we got a good guest list for you guys on this Monday afternoon to help you get your work week started out the correct way. Belle Frazier will be our first guest, covers the Utah Hockey Club for the Salt Lake Tribune. Tom Haberstroh will drop your NBA Daily Assist. I got to say, one team that is losing that I'm fine with, the Utah Jazz. Lose, okay? If you listen to the show, I've been on it for a while. I'm going to stay on it. Nobody likes losing, but it is a necessity if you have to do a bit of a reset in pro basketball like the Jazz have to do. So we'll talk to Tom Haberstroh today. I'm sorry about this, but on a Monday, we're going to give you our Big 12 power rankings. Ooh, baby. And then Matt Crooks from RSL will stop by. Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, on the program as well. Belle Frazier, Tom Haberstroh, Matt Crooks, Scott Mitchell, me, Spence Checketts, on this Monday. Thank you for making a part of your Monday. That guy, I've been wrong, buddy. You know, you produced this show for a number of years now. I've been wrong before. I don't know that I've ever been as wrong as I clearly have been about this Utah football team.
Well, and I mean, all of us can be guilty of that. And you look at the Big 12 preseason media poll, Utah was up there at number 1. They were picked as the team to win it by not just us here in the market, but by media members across the country and around the conference. Yeah, we're wrong, but there is a lot of context to that, which includes obviously the availability of a quarterback, which is the main issue, I think, with this Utah team. That being said, just as big of an issue is the inability to move on from not having quarterback one, and that is what we'll get into today. In addition to, as you, a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the market.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year, so that gives us a lot to get to. We'll start things off. Little hockey chatter with Belle Frazier from the Trib. But before we get to Belle, courtesy of our friends at Standard Restaurant Supply. Check them out at standardrestaurant.com or stop by their location of 3500 South. It is time now for your opening tip. So we're going to start the show on a Monday by taking our medicine. We got to do it. Utah football goes down to Houston, and they lose. Last-second field goal by Houston after an interception from Brandon Rose gave Houston some pretty good field position. Utah football has now lost 4 straight games for the first time since 2017. It's only the 4th time that it's ever happened in 2 decades under Coach Witt. And now it's a bye week, and then you welcome in a red-hot BYU Cougar team right now who's very complete. They play complementary football. They're good all the way around. Jake Retzlaff has evolved and developed into one of the best quarterbacks in this conference, period. That's what the numbers say. So you can complain about it all you want, but right now BYU is flying, and I guarantee they are smelling blood in the water like a shark, and they want to come up here and they want to go for the jugular. That's just the nature of this game. Grew up around it, covered it for 18 years doing this radio show. In other places, this radio show as well. Usually there's chaos unless there's a big-time talent gap. More often than not, it feels like a random, crazy play changes the scope of the entire thing. But as we sit here today, I can't sit here and tell you that I have confidence in this Utah football team to turn it around. I'm sorry about that. I wish I did. We are your home of the Utes, and ultimately, as someone who went to school there and has watched this football program be built brick by Coach Witt for 20 years, this is new. This feels like an all-time new low. And I don't know exactly where to kind of place blame. I don't do radio like that anyway. I'm not a call for the coach's job guy. Mekhi Bernard, everyone's talking about Mekhi's comments after the game when he said, look, I know what's wrong. I'm just not going to say it out loud. I've seen a lot of rumors about that. I can't speak to it. My guess is if he was honest and kept going after Josh Furlong from KSL asked him the question, he would have talked about the quarterback play. I don't think there's anything behind closed doors going on that we don't know about, but I can't speak to it. I have no idea. I'm not in the locker room. But I can just say, man, the feeling around the community right now, and we all exist on our own little echo chambers and cognitive dissonance and such. So I am reacting to messages I receive from Ute fans, social media, direct messages, friends, emails, text messages, and such. And from my vantage point, I don't think I can recall in 18 years of doing this a feeling around Utah football that feels this desolate, this desperate, this low. And obviously it's the losing. It's 4 straight, but it's also juxtaposed and combined with what we all thought that they could be. Like, if we were all on the same page that Utah football was going to really struggle to find their footing year one of the Big 12, then the show would sound much different. We talk about the growing pains, and we talk about developing young players, and we talk about step-by-step. Like, the reason everybody's so bummed about this is we all thought it was going to be the exact opposite. And honestly, I don't know what to say about this team the rest of the year. I have seen Kyle Whittingham turn teams around. And as we talked about during Crosstalk, Coach Witt, over 20 years, does deserve the benefit of the doubt. But I do feel like the trust is eroding a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure that there's another sports figure in our state that's more Teflon than Kyle based off of what he's accomplished. Maybe Ryan Smith, because the man with the gold makes the rules. But, unless you want to count that element of this discussion, Coach Witt is probably the most Teflon sports figure in our state. And he is a man of great integrity and great character, and I'm sure that he's going to do everything in his power to try to get this thing right over the next 12 days before Brigham Young comes rolling up to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Because I can tell you what, if we just see coming up at Rice-Eccles what we've seen from both teams, BYU wins by 2 touchdowns at least. Like, how can we spin it any other way as we sit here today on this Monday after watching Utah lose its 4th straight football game and watching BYU for the second time under Kalani Sitake? The last time it was 2020 during the COVID year. They've started 8-0. They're in the top 10, 12th time all-time for Brigham Young in the top 10 for their college football program. And the ironic thing is, to start the year, we thought it was going to be BYU's tough schedule that might trip them up, and Utah's relatively easy schedule, according to the metrics, that would play in their favor. But now the final 4 games, Utah has a much, much more difficult task where you're playing essentially 3 of the 4 best teams in the conference, and then you finish with a 3 time zone travel to Orlando to take on a solid UCF team. So it's Brigham Young, then it's in Boulder against Colorado, it's back home against Iowa State, then you're on the road at UCF. How many wins do you see? I mean, honestly, right here today, as we sit here on a Monday and I read off the rest of the schedule for Utah football, how many wins do you see? Because they're going to need, at least 2 to go bowling, and the really crummy part is it's going to be a throwaway bowl game. I mean, you like the experience for the seniors and you want to qualify for a bowl because everybody does. But when your season has been broken down and essentially broken down to the studs, where the only thing you're playing for is to ruin the seasons for your opponents, that's a damning sentiment about where this program is. And I have to wonder where Morgan is on this, right? So there's a lot. And you guys, you don't have to take it from me. There are people that know in a way that I just wouldn't, that believe that Kyle is going to walk away at the end of this year. And we know that Morgan is going to slide over one seat from his defensive coordinator slot and take over the head coaching job. Like, where is Morgan right now? I just wonder where his head is at as far as what he is about to inherit and what he's about to take over, if that's the deal. Now, in a weird way, this could actually work to Morgan's favor because typically, ask Tyrone Corbin. I could give you a list. Ask anybody who has stepped in for a coaching legend after that legend steps aside. Ask them what that's like. More often than not, it doesn't work. Kalen DeBoer is going through it down in Tuscaloosa. They're used to a certain standard. And Alabama football has not played up to that standard. So if the season continues to go south, and I'm sorry, on this Monday, after being the guy that was holding on to the last branch last week, I let go of the branch. I'm face down in the mud. It's just the data that we have, the proof that we have. I think the defense is still good, of course. Couple of fourth down goal line stands to keep them in the game. And by most metrics, Utah defense is still one of the elite defenses in both the conference and the country. But imagine being on that side of the football, and we've talked to Nate Orchard and others, and we'll talk to Scott Mitchell today about this. Like, if you're on the defense and you get a great stand, you go over and you have a sip of Gatorade, then you turn around, you got to put your helmet back on. At some point, that is going to seep into the chemistry of the group. It's just inevitable. And we're starting to see it a little bit here or there. But look, credit Brigham Young for what they've done. Kalani's doing a hell of a job. He's going to be on the short list for Coach of the Year, both Big 12 and in the country, and he deserves it. Jake is playing mistake-free football like I didn't think he could after the 4 starts, and he lost all 4 last year. They're complementary. L.J. Martin is back. Hinckley Rapati's a beast. They can pass it. They can run it. Their special teams are dialed. They turn the other team over. They did it twice again against UCF. They take care of the football much better than Jake was under center last year. They've got a big-time playmaker in Chase Roberts. Darius Lassiter has upped his game as well. Darius and Jake just kind of have this thing. They are dialed in on both sides of the football, all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams. BYU is far superior, as we sit here today, over the University of Utah. Sorry, I wish I could spin it in another way. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up on the other side, we're going to bring in Belle Frazier. The Utah Hockey Club, after that hot start, is also finding themselves on the wrong side of results as they've lost 3 straight games. They only have 3 goals in 3 games. This is a club that had 16 goals in their first 3 games. And now they have 3 in the last 3. So I often talk about the scene at Delta Center when the Utah Hockey Club was introduced. And Bill Armstrong took the mic. He's young and rebuilding. And Spicy Tuna was getting the crowd going. And so Bill himself kind of warned us that this is still a process. And, it will ebb and flow. But we're going to do some Utah Hockey Club coming up on the other side. We'll bring in Tom Haberstroh to do a little Jazz. The Jazz got smoked on Friday by Golden State. We are going to begrudgingly do our Big 12 power poll today. Matt Crooks from RSL, then Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, is going to roll by as well. Don't forget, big night in sports. You got Monday Night Football with the Steelers and the Giants, and then the World Series. We'll see if the Yankees can get back in it. So as a Yankee fan, a Jet fan, Utah football, Utah Hockey Club, Utah Jazz, rough weekend for your boy, but we're going to get through it together. Let's welcome in Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for hopping on. So you have helped me over the past year with 2 things specifically. It is testosterone therapy that I've been doing for about a year, and then vitality peptides that I've been doing for about 4 months. I had a wedding over the weekend, and I saw a bunch of people that I haven't seen in a number of years. They all asked me the same thing. What are you doing? You look different. And really, I owe that to you. So if we have listeners out there in their 40s, 50s, and they want to look like they did when they were in their 20s or 30s, how can you help them out?
Absolutely. Well, it's super easy. We just need to evaluate your kind of health status, see where your testosterone is, and see what else is lacking in your wellness journey. And we can really put that back together for our clients and really make them feel like you or even better.
All right, let's bring in Ken now. So, as we talk about Ken, I'm in my mid 40s. You're just a skosh older than I am, all due respect. So, what has your experience been with Lifestyle Men's Health?
Well, just this past, not this weekend, the weekend before that, I went down hiking in Sedona to do the practical side of things. Hiked up to the 7 secret pools, and then from there hiked up to the caves. And if anybody knows that area, that is quite the hike. And I did that at my age with no assistance, and I just really thought about it. And you just kind of mentioned, I actually feel like I'm in my 30s. So that's what it's done for me, Spence.
All right, Dr. Peterson, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who call you today?
Well, we are including free testosterone replacement therapy with our signature regenerative erectile dysfunction treatment.
All right, there you go. That's a great deal. And, try it out for a few months, see if you like it. I promise that you will. So call today at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Thank you both. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks, Ben.
All right, Belle Frazier, Bats leadoff, coming up right here on ESPN 700. See, this is a great song and a great intro, but you can't cut it short. You got to let it bleed into the start of the song, right?
I think so.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, because it really is. And this was so Belle picked this song.
Yes.
We must have an old soul on our hands because I believe she's too young for The Who. Belle Frazier covers the Utah Hockey Club. Did you grow up with The Who, Belle?
No, but it was always the New York Rangers intro song
Yes.
for
Yep.
playoffs, so it
Mhm.
was just part of my childhood inherently. I guess it was like my hockey song growing up.
I love it. I love it. Well, great memories, certainly, attending a lot of Ranger games, as you and I both did. All right, Belle, what's gone wrong here after the hot start? We kind of come back down to earth. What stands out most to you about this Utah Hockey Club streak of 3 losses and then 5 losses in their last 6 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it was a hot start. You know, that was not a start I think most people were expecting from that team, especially going into the Islanders and Rangers opening night with those overtime wins. And then they had another great overtime win at Delta Center against the Bruins, where they played a good game. And I think this is just what you have to expect with a team that's in the 4th year of a rebuild with one number 1 defenseman right now and then kind of figuring out how to work with their injured blue line. Coach shuffled the lines a lot today in practice, so you're going to see a new look up front for them tonight. But I think other than the 5-1 loss against Colorado, I think that game they just didn't show up at all. The players said it afterwards. It was kind of an unacceptable performance. The effort level wasn't there. The buy-in wasn't there. But I think the 4-0 loss against Ottawa looks a lot worse than maybe it was. You know, they let up gas for 8 minutes in the first period, gave up 4 goals, and then for the second and third didn't give up anything else and had a lot of good chances. And same thing with the Kings. That's a one-shot game. Logan Cooley gets his first of the year, and Clayton Keller gets his team going too. So I think his sentiment today was you obviously want wins in this league. You're not coming in just to have moral victories. But when you look at the body of work, maybe the scores or the loss column for them it looks a little bit different than how they actually feel in the room. And I think that's kind of the message you have to give to stay positive in there. They're building and they're trying to find their identity in Utah, and that's not going to come with, you know, a 10-0 streak to start the season. But tonight they play the San Jose Sharks, who I believe are 0-7-2. So the pressure's on. If you don't want to underestimate any opponent in the league, but this is a team that Utah should beat and it has an opportunity to get out of a losing rut here and on home ice nonetheless. So I would say this is kind of a must-win for the team, and we can talk about lines later. But, yeah, they're shaking up the forward group to kind of get something going after only scoring, 3 regulation goals in 3 games?
Yeah, the offense is stalled, and I wanted to kind of kick the tires with you on, and you'll know better than I, but when I read up, I didn't watch a ton of Coyotes hockey last year. I will admit that, Belle. I wasn't dialed in on them. So when I read about the issues they had a year ago, it seemed like most people believe that Connor was asked to stand on his head a bit because the defense was just kind of left wanting. Now, they made some additions in the offseason, as we know. They also have some injuries. So are we kind of seeing a continuation of that issue that plagued them last year? Do you see that side of the equation here where the defense continues to struggle and they're asking their goalkeeper to do a little bit too much?
Yeah, for sure. That, and they're not scoring in the numbers that they did last year too. Like last year, they didn't have really a lot of issues scoring 3 to 4 goals a night, but they were giving up average 3.5 goals a night, I think, more than they were scoring. So that's never going to win you a game. And the back end, we talked about it earlier this season. That was the main thing they focused on going to the season. They brought in Sergachev, they extended Dursey, they brought in John Marino, Ian Cole, Bertuzzo, and Sean Dursey got shoulder surgery on his right shoulder, and he's out 4 to 6 months. They just released. And Marino hasn't even skated with the team yet. He got lower back surgery and is out, I believe, 3 to 4 months. So those are 2 guys that you kind of thought were going to be back-end stalwarts for you. And you're kind of given the opportunity to a lot of young guys to step up. But that wasn't the blueprint for this season. You know, the whole point was to have these young guys be able to be paired with maybe a little more experienced veterans. And you still have Sergachev and you still have Cole and Bertuzzo, but they're kind of more stay-at-home, you know, puck-eating physical defensemen and not the same two-way, maybe offensive flair the way that Marino and Dursey are. So I think you see that as a struggle for them. They have Michael Kesslering on the first pair, who has been holding his own and has kept up with the minutes pretty well, but that's not exactly what you would have imagined coming into the season. And then they called up Maverick Lamoureux from the AHL. He made his NHL debut a few nights ago, and he's been great, but he's 20 years old, and he's learning the league for the first time as well. He's been paired with Ian Cole. So I think the NHL, because of injuries and call-ups, is kind of a learn-as-you-go league. It's not really a developmental league. That's what the AHL is for. So you're kind of seeing Utah figure out their problems on the fly. And I think that defense doesn't just come from the defensemen. It's the forwards, too. And Lawson Krause kind of said that. They need to play better team defense. It's not just on the two guys and the goalie. So I think it goes down all through the roster, and they're going to figure out eventually. But, yeah, I think the D court that they have now is not what most people would have projected in September.
So you referenced some shuffling with some of the lines. So let's get the detailed information there. And do you know what it's going to look like? Maybe starting as early as tonight.
Yeah. So per coach this morning, he said the first line will be Keller, Cooley, and Gunther. So Cooley's getting moved up to center that line, as is Gunther on the right wing, and then second line is supposed to be Michelli, Hayton, and Schmaltz. Third line, Kerfoot, Bukestad, and Krause. And, big return with Bukestad, who played his first game this season last game after being injured for all of training camp. And then the fourth line will be McBain, Stenlin, and O'Brien. So big news tonight is that Josh Stone is a healthy scratch for the first time this season. And O'Brien's coming in on the fourth line. So Michael Carconi will also be scratched. And then Juuso Valimaki scratched, so Bertuzzo will be in on the back end. But, they really shuffled it up. I talked to Cooley the other day, and he kind of said when teams aren't producing and guys aren't feeling their best, sometimes a mix-up is just good mentally to feel like you have a refresher and then see what happens. And worked for him last game. He got his first of the season, and he kind of gets the promotion to the first line now. So we'll see what it can do. But Utah kind of stuck with the same lineup for the first 6-ish games of the season, and I think at a certain point when you're not scoring, it's on the coach to kind of see what he can get out of his lineup, and that's exactly what they've done here.
Let's move over to special teams. First, I wanted to get your opinion on what you've seen on both the power play and then the power play kill. I mean, that's another, killing power plays a year ago was not a strength of theirs. So are you seeing any improvement on the special teams side, and do you know what the special teams lines are going to look like tonight?
Yeah, I think, starting the season, the power play was a strength for Utah, and it's really dwindled off a bit. A lot of the players have talked about it, and you can see it in the games. They're playing a lot more perimeter than they did before. They're kind of being pushed to outside ice and shooting from the point and the circles, which, is great. But in this NHL, goaltenders are too good, defensemen are too good. They'll get in the way, they'll block the shot, they'll make the save. And I think when Utah had the most success this season was when they were battling for inside ice, when they were fighting for the crease. Barrett Hayton had a great screen on Clayton Keller's goal right when the power play expired. And Logan Cooley did a good job of that, just getting in front and getting a tip-in goal. And coach has kind of preached getting the greasier, dirtier goals, and that's when, they have 3 to 4 goals a night. So I think they need to start doing that on the power play again and kind of not looking for the perfect shot, but just getting it on net and going for the rebound. So power play units today in practice, the first one was Sergachev, Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton, and Gunther, which is unchanged. That's a pretty loaded first unit. And then the second unit is Kesslering, Michelli, Bukestad, Krause, and Cooley. And that's a bit of a different look because Bukestad is back and also because Valimaki is scratched. Kesslering will be running the point on the power play. He did last game. He has a tremendous shot, one of the best one of the defensemen on the team, I would say. So I think that's no worry with him up there. And then for the penalty kill, I personally I worry less about the penalty kill than the power play because I think just the experience they have back there is great. You look at Stenlin, Kerfoot, Bertuzzo, all of those guys have kind of earned a living blocking shots, winning defensive zone faceoffs, and have that mileage that they know what it takes in do or die situations. So I think the PK is less of a problem for Utah, and you just need to score. Like if you're not scoring 5-on-5, you're probably not scoring on the power play and vice versa. So I think once that offensive touch comes back for Utah, maybe that confidence will come back for the power play. But it also comes with discipline. They've had to use their penalty kill a lot more than they've had to use their power play with the amount of penalties they've taken. So you've got to put yourself in opportunities to be a man up and not be a man down. And I think that's something that the team is actively working on.
Are they getting what they need / expected from Sergachev? Because it seems like he's extremely skilled for a defenseman as far as the ability to provide, assists. He hasn't scored a goal yet, but he has 5 assists. But back to the defensive issues, he was kind of the star signing of the offseason. Has he lived up to expectations, in your opinion, Belle?
Yeah, I mean, it's early, and I think you probably need at least, 15, 20 games that you're nearing. But I think Sergachev has been great, and I think he's been what they need him to be, and he probably has taken on a lot more responsibility than he thought he was going to have. The conversations coming into the season was, can he be the number one defenseman? Will he earn that role? And he has, because of all the injuries they've had. And, there were 2 games where they went down to 5 defensemen when Dursey was out and Bertuzzo got hurt, and Sergachev logged almost 30 minutes of ice time for both of those games. And he's continued, even with 6 defensemen, to log around 25 plus a night. So that part of that is he's used in all situations. He'll be on the power play. He can slot in on the penalty kill. He's on the first pair. He's kind of orchestrating offense from the top, but then he also is the first one back. So I think his versatility kind of forces him to be on the ice for that amount of time. And I think something that sticks out with him is even if he's logging all those miles, his play doesn't really dip. It could be his first minute on the ice or his 22nd in the third period. And his level of play and his compete level kind of remains the same. And that's something that is not true for a lot of defensemen who have to log that much time. You just simply get tired. But we talked to Sergachev, and he said he's really embracing it. It's his chance to be a leader on this team. And he said it's kind of helping him get his confidence back. He suffered a really brutal injury last year, breaking his leg. And it takes a second to get back into the season and lose that fear of getting injured again. And he said the more he plays, the more comfortable he feels, not only just as a hockey player, but within the Utah system. So I think he's kind of doing everything he can to lift that blue line, and the goals will come. I think that's something everyone's confident about. You're not really nervous about Sergachev hitting a slump, because if he's not scoring with the puck, his work away from it is helping the team win in different ways.
So I think we all could agree with the following statement. Probably not as good as they started the season, and probably not as bad as they've been over the past 4 or 5 games. So it is early. It is 9 games, but through the first 9, what are you confident, Belle, in saying that you really do know about this team? Got off to a hot start, have leveled off, and the truth, as it normally is probably somewhere in the middle, yeah?
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's not surprising. You knew with a team like this, a young team that's still trying to figure out all the pieces, that it's going to be a mixed bag. It's going to be up and down. But something that's really stuck out to me over, this losing streak, and even during the winning streak, is the maturity in the room and how they're handling this adversity. I think maybe in Arizona the past few years, when the leaders on that team were only, 23, 24, 25 at that time. Now those guys are 26, 27, 28. And even the young guys like Gunther and Cooley and McBain, they kind of just have a good mindset and head on their shoulders right now. And they came out of that Colorado game, and no one was like, oh, it's early in the season. Like, you're going to lose sometimes at home. Oh, well, like every single guy saying that's unacceptable. That is not Utah hockey. That's not what we're here to do. We have to learn from it, and we have to grow from it. So I think that kind of just says a lot about, where the team has come from and not getting frustrated with themselves. And I think you saw that in the Ottawa game too, when they lost 4-0, even though they weren't able to score in those 40 minutes after they gave up those 4 goals, they were pushing. It was never, breaking sticks, bad attitude on the bench, kind of throwing the game away because they were down 4. I mean, they were fighting for a goal until that last minute. And I think that's what you want to see from a team. If they're losing, okay, everyone's going to lose in the NHL, but it's what are they taking from those losses? What are they trying to improve on? And how are they viewing kind of those losses? So I think, a big theme has been maturity and accountability in a room that had to grow that, from the ground up in Arizona. And I think it'll help them get out of this rut and help them down the stretch, hopefully, when they're able to start stringing some wins together.
So I saw that you wrote about the debut of Maverick Lamoureux, the 20-year-old, man, so young, 20-year-old defenseman who made his debut last week. Unpack that piece for us, Belle. Tell our listeners what you learned about this young kid.
Yeah, I mean, from day one when he came to practice, so he got called up. They called him right before he went to bed in Arizona, and he was on a 6 a.m. flight the next morning. Shows up to Utah practice that same morning off of like 4 hours of sleep, and he was probably the most lively guy there. And in the media scrum, he's just so happy, so smiley, laughing, jumping around, just so happy to be in the NHL. And he didn't know at that point if he was making his debut, but he was just so grateful for the opportunity. And what's really interesting about him, Sean Durzee's out with the shoulder surgery. And I talked about this in the story, but before he turned 20, or by the time he turned 20, he underwent 2 shoulder surgeries. So he has had to deal with that 4 to 6 month rehab twice in the prime years of his development. He was injured in his draft year. Then he was injured in the time when you're trying to make a push in the juniors or NCAA or in the AHL to show the franchise you were drafted by that you're kind of ready to go and be a difference maker in the organization. So he's had to battle back from a lot of that. And I think it shows in his work ethic on the ice. He's 6'6", almost 200 pounds, and he skates. I talked to one of his strength trainers this summer. He said he skates like he's 5'10", but he's 6'6". And I think that's really unique about him and what Utah fans have been able to see, that he's this big physical body, but he's kind of fleet-footed. He can score. He's responsible. That's something he's really been saying, that he just wants the team to be able to trust him, even though he's younger. And, personality, too. He was saying he's been trying to grow out his mustache and his beard so he can look more like a pro because he's only 20 playing against these older guys. Said his dad told him to shave it, but he was like, no, I have to try to fit in. So I think that's something that Utah fans get with a developing team, is that with injuries and stuff like that, you're going to see some of their prospects from the AHL get to come up and have their opportunities. And, it's nothing's cooler than getting to see a kid's dream come true. And that's exactly what it was for Utah this week. And, Coach said sometimes that does something for the room. It's a little reminder for everyone to, remember where they came from and remember what a privilege it is to play in the NHL. So I think that's been a bright spot for Utah, and we'll kind of see how long he can pull this pro stint off for.
Well, before I set you loose, I wonder what your opinion is on how the building has felt. I mean, I was there opening night, and it was awesome, and I've watched the rest of the games on television. I know you're there. What do you make of the type of support that this club is getting so far here in Salt Lake?
I don't think anything has compared to opening night. That was a really special night. Sell out. The crowd was insane. It was super loud. Every play, it felt like they were ready to explode. I would say the Bruins game, there were a lot of Bruins fans. Randomly, a lot of Utah natives are Bruins fans, so it was kind of split for that. And then the last 2 games, it's still full, but I think the energy has teetered off maybe a little, which is fair if your team is shut out one night and scores 1 goal with 5 minutes left in the third period the next night. So, I think the fan support is obviously still there. People are still interested, but the players have all talked about it. Nick Bukestad talked about it today. They need to give people something to cheer about and something to be invested in. And the way to create that tradition and culture of Utah hockey is winning. And so that's something I think they're really aware of, is that they need to put a good product on the ice for people to want to support the Utah Hockey Club and make this a premier NHL city. So it's definitely not missed on them. But, yeah, I would say opening night set standards pretty high. I don't know if the building has been that loud since that night, but it's loud every night, and it's definitely a step up from what they were dealing with last year. So I think they appreciate the fan support, whether it's a sellout or the upper bowl is kind of scattered.
Well, thanks so much for the time. Keep up the great work. You're very helpful for all of us as we learn this new sport here in our market. And have a great week. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Belle Frazier covers the Utah Hockey Club for the Salt Lake Tribune. Get her on Twitter at BelleFrazier1 is where you find her. A really cool piece on Maverick Lamoureux, his debut with the hockey club last week. And seems like a great kid trying to grow out a beard so he looks older. He's only 20 years old. All right, let's welcome in Ken now from Lifestyle Men's Health on a Monday. Ken, happy Monday, sir. How we doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How about you, Spence?
I'm well. I appreciate your time. So I referenced this earlier with Dr. Peterson. I had a wedding over the weekend up in Park City, and I saw a lot of people I haven't seen in a number of years. And they all said the same thing. Like, what are you doing right now? You look different. You look younger. And it's because of 2 things that I've utilized through Lifestyle Men's Health. For me, it's been the testosterone therapy, which is about a year for me, and about 3 months on the Vitality peptides, which have really, really, quite frankly, changed my life in the way that I look. And I'm in my mid-40s. You're a tad older, Ken, all due respect. So let's hear about your experience with Lifestyle Men's Health.
You know, I've been telling my story for a while now, but the bottom line is us men, we don't talk a lot about our health and, you know, with other men or whatever. And what we would like to see is, man, communication. Because as Dr. Andrews Peterson says, you know, one of her statements is you don't know how bad you're feeling until you start feeling better. And the only way to do that is to schedule an appointment to come in and see us. We actually have a free 30-minute assessment. We don't charge anything for this. And this is huge. So I want everybody to get off their assets, no pun intended,
nice.
and come in and talk to us and see what we can do for you, because we don't know until we actually sit down and assess your health, and then we can make some recommendations.
What is the special offer, Ken, you have for listeners who call you today?
You know, we've had such an amazing response from last week that I offered anybody who signs up for our erectile dysfunction treatments that they get 3 months of testosterone for free, and that's just a huge value.
All right, great value today. So pick up the phone and give them a call and get started on your journey. As Ken referenced, you can go in just for a consultation with no obligation. So do it over the phone today at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Ken, thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Spence. Appreciate it.
All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Tom Haberstroh drops your NBA Daily Assist coming up next, and then we begrudgingly will give you our Big 12 Power Poll. It'll be a rough one for the Utes. Matt Crooks from RSL, Scott Mitchell for more college football. A lot to do on a Monday. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Get back to some college football coming up in a bit. Scott Mitchell stops by, one of the best to ever do it at the U. Longtime NFL vet. We're going to bring Scott in a little bit later. RSO gets their hopefully postseason run started tomorrow night against Minnesota here in our market. Started things off a little hockey, but now it's time for some basketball. The Jazz are 0-2. They've lost their first couple of games. They're in Dallas tonight. Time for the NBA Daily Assist with our guy, Tom Haberstroh. On a Monday. Tom, happy Monday, buddy. How we doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm well. So we have a lot of teams that are losing right now in our market. Utah football is not great. Hockey team, 3 straight. But the one team that I'm on board with the losing is the Jazz. Okay, so I don't know if they're actually doing this by design, but through 2 games, there were some decent moments against Memphis. Markkanen was really good. They get smoked by Golden State. Is there a chance they're finally leaning in to a full, I'll just say it, a full tank in order to kind of expedite the rebuild with maybe a Cooper Flag or something like it next draft?
Until Larry Markkanen is sidelined with some sort of load management, no, I don't think that they're trying to lose this badly. I think it's just a bad case of they can't hit a shot, and the other team is just everybody looks like Steph Curry out there. What Buddy Hield did against the Blazers the other day, and then what he did against the Jazz, you would think that he is the greatest shooter of all time. And it's just, this is life in the NBA. It's a young team. Keontae George still struggling to figure things out. It's another year. Scoot Henderson's another young point guard in his sophomore year. And at times he's struggling to hit his jumper from downtown. But Keontae George, we thought he was going to be better at this in terms of his long-distance shooting, and he's shown moments that he is a really talented shooter, hasn't been able to get it together. But Markkanen is that dude. Until he is sidelined for any sort of period, I am going to say that they're not trying to lose this badly, but when the Golden State Warriors are going to look like that, it's really hard to beat anybody.
No, for sure. And you referenced Keontae. So, look, every time either Zanuck or Ainge has an opportunity to address the media, they pretty much hammer the same point home, which is development of our young players and believing in our coach and believing in this process. So what should Jazz fans look for to indicate whether or not the development is going well? Because you referenced it. And look, it's only 2 games. We're just trying to make some topics here out of a couple of basketball games, which is always tricky. But we have data now dating back to college of Keontae just not being a good shooter. I mean, I know it sounds simplistic, but he didn't knock down a high percentage in college. He didn't as a rookie. He was 3 of 18 against Memphis. And so if the development is working, he was 4 of 12 against Golden State, so obviously not a good start as far as shot making, 5 turnovers against the Warriors as well. If the development is working over there, what should Jazz fans look for to indicate that things are trending up with some of these young players?
Well, I'll just put it like this. Over in Portland, Scoot Henderson has 22 shots at the rim, restricted area. So that's that area right like 2-3 feet inside the basket area. He has 22 shots. He's getting to the cup. Do you know how many shots in the restricted area Keontae George has so far this season?
Doesn't feel like a lot, would be my guess.
0.
I didn't know it was 0, I'll tell you that much. Wow.
0. He's got 0 shots at the rim in the 2 games. And that's worrisome for me. Beyond like the long distance shooting that isn't there yet in 2 games, it's your ability to get to the rack. What separates Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what separates Ja Morant, what separates De'Aaron Fox, what separates even Steph Curry with his great 3-point shot, very underrated at his finishing around the rim. You got to get there. That is an elite level skill that after a season of being a point guard in the NBA, you have to have at least one. And so that for me is the biggest thing, is your ability to get to the rack is a premier skill as a point guard. In order to be an upper echelon point guard and lead guy in the NBA, you got to get to the cup. And so far this season, according to NBA.com shooting data, Keontae George has 0 attempts at the rim. Now, he's 3 of 11 in the paint, but not at the rim area. So maybe you can say that these floaters should be considered layups, but it is alarming to me that Keontae George, through 2 games, does not have a single shot or a layup so far this season. So I'm not expecting him to be Ja Morant. I'm not expecting him to be Russell Westbrook, prime Russell Westbrook, or prime Derrick Rose. But that's going to be something that I'm going to track going forward, is his ability to get to the rack. And yes, he's getting to the free throw line, so some of those attempts aren't being counted because he might be getting fouled at the rim and negates the missed free field goal attempt. But I do think that when other players like Scoot Henderson, who are about the same age, are getting to the cup 22 times in 3 games, it should be at least 1 attempt at the rim for Keontae.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you asked the question, because I've watched every minute of every game, both games, it didn't seem like there would be a lot, but I did not know it was 0. This is year 3 for Walker Kessler, so I'm going to continue to kind of track his progress because, like I just asked you about Keontae, if the Jazz are asking us to watch this development take place, a year 3 Walker Kessler is going to be a bit of a case study because he's had time in the league. And so far, it's been pretty good. He was really good against Memphis. Zach Edey, who played in 138 college basketball games and only fouled out once, fouled out in 15 minutes, and Walker was kind of the main impetus there. He also had 14 boards. And, the Golden State game is tough to measure because they were just getting smoked. And so essentially a lot of guys just sat. Walker only played 20 minutes. But I'll kind of ask you the same question. What should year 3 look like for Walker Kessler?
Well, it should be more than 25 minutes a game. I think for him, it's the ability to play deeper into games and proving that you don't get into foul trouble. But he's not getting into foul trouble, and yet he's only playing 25 minutes so far. I would like to see him as an elite center who I think was on track to be a kind of in the same profile as Rudy Gobert. He's still not able to be trusted for huge minutes. Now, Markkanen and Keontae George have only played 61 over those 2 games, so they're playing just over 30 minutes. But I still would like to see Kessler playing a little bit more higher minutes, especially because he hasn't been in foul trouble. But also, it is a little unnerving to see that the team with the second highest field goal percentage at the rim is Utah Jazz. 74% of the shots at the rim are going in, and that's the second highest for any defense in the NBA. That's not what you want to see from a team that employs Walker Kessler that is, one of the best shot blockers in the game in terms of just pure shot blocking. But rim protection is more than that. As you know from watching Rudy Gobert for all these years, it's not just about the block shots. It's also about the shots that don't get taken in the rim area. You're deterring shots at the rim. But so far this season, the Utah Jazz have allowed 74% shooting in the restricted area, which is the second highest in the league. So you can build a good defense around preventing shots at the rim. And even though it's a high number, 74%, maybe you're minimizing the attempts. And so you're preventing those shots at the rim. And yes, sometimes they break through in transition, but you're not seeing that rim protection or rim deterrence like you would hope. And so I think Walker, maybe it's just a tough couple games here in the opening of the season, but I would like to see that rim protection stat be a little bit better for Walker.
So I was curious to see, because as you know, Tom, you've been doing this forever. Coaches just want to win now. They don't have any interest in losing a bunch of games that goes on their track record. For no matter where Will Hardy goes, he's going to have a lot of L's on his resume as a result of being a part of this project. Now, they picked up his 5th year. So next year will be year 4. They already had that option picked up. They announced like 2 weeks ago, you're good, okay? So you're picked up through year 5. It's a lot like what Danny did in Boston with Brad Stevens. So he's in the room. He's part of the deal. He knows kind of what time it is with the youth on his roster. But I was really curious to see, because Will and Patty Mills know each other from San Antonio, and Patty Mills is an NBA champ, and he's 36, so nobody's expecting very much. But I was curious to see what Will would do during Keontae's inevitable struggles as a young player who's been tasked as the lead guard here. And against Memphis, Patty played 16 minutes. He didn't take a shot. He didn't take a free throw. He had one board. He had one assist. But they were plus 10 in Patty's 16 minutes as a team, and they were minus 11 in Keontae's 31. As Will decided to kind of go with Patty Mills a little bit to see if he could get a veteran, and it worked. The ball started popping. The ball started moving. Keontae, Tom, there's a little Donovan there. Like, he sometimes can get a little ball dominant instead of being more decisive and quick with his decisions. And then Golden State, Utah got smoked, but in Patty's 18 minutes, they were minus 4. In Keontae's 30 minutes, they're minus 37. So what do you make of that dynamic of a coach who simply wants to win and wants to win now, but tasked with development? And do you think we're going to see, will allow Keontae to continue to learn with these mistakes, or is he going to try to play some vets to get more wins? What do you think?
Yeah, so in year 3 of the Brad Stevens head coaching gig over at Boston, they were a 48-win team. 48-win team.
Yeah.
So they were one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They lost in the first round, but they had Isaiah Thomas, all-star, 22 points per game, which I guess you could put Markkanen in the same category. But they also had some vets in there that were good. They had a young team for sure, but they had some guys who could really play right now. I'm not so sure you have the same caliber of players on this roster for Will Hardy, no matter who he is. He's prime Greg Popovich. I don't think this team is going to be a 48-win team. And in order to be a Michelin star chef, you have to have Michelin star ingredients. And so I think, Patty Mills is at the end of his career. And for him to lean on Patty Mills for more than 10 minutes a game is going to be tough. And so, sometimes you look at a guy and say, you got to play him to learn through your mistakes. But then you see Markelle Fultz get washed out of the league in 4 years. You see Anthony Bennett, number 1 overall pick, wash out of the league in 4 years. There's a lot of guys who were expected to be great right away and just didn't have it and washed out of the league. And so as much as we'd like to say that this is a noble thing, that we got to let these guys play through their mistakes, there comes a tipping point in which you're hurting your team and the morale of the club because there's other guys who are more capable who are sitting on the bench. I don't know if Patty Mills is that guy, but, just like Eric Spoelstra with Udonis Haslem, it is good to have these veterans who have won championships, who have been in winning organizations, to be around to, give a sense of professionalism and a sense of winning character and having the right habits in the locker room. And, I remember Eric Spoelstra telling me once why he had Juwan Howard as a player, even though he barely played at the end of his bench. And he's like, because his message carries a lot more weight when it's a player, when it's a guy in a uniform saying the same thing that I'm going to say, but when it's a player saying that, the young guys seem to listen a little bit more, or it's going to reach them a little bit deeper if one of their teammates is saying the very same message that the coach does. So I do think there's value in having Patty Mills on the team beyond just his minutes on the floor, but you got to see some better production from George because, I guess you could say Jordan Clarkson could play backup point guard and steal some minutes from Keontae, but I do think that it's a tough thing for Will Hardy. This organization, I think, would be wise to see what they can get for their veterans and try to see, what you can get for John Collins or what you can get for a guy like Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton and see if you can get some draft picks. Because, when you look at the trajectory, you said it, Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens didn't get Jaylen Brown until year 4. Year 5 is when he got Jason Tatum. So we like to think that Brad Stevens went through years of struggle to get those guys, but it's true. Year 4 and year 5 is when they got those two, and I think that's what Danny Ainge is pointing to and saying, like, Will and the rest of the guys, we're trying to get our Victor Wembanyama. We're trying to get our Jason Tatum. It just might be another year or two.
All right, one more Jazz question, and then we will move along to some other topics that's going on around the basketball world right now that are more interesting than what we're going to watch here all year. I wonder, so, and obviously, as you know, we're in this new CBA reality. A lot of people, just to kind of be reductive, draw the parallel of Adam Silver trying to make this look a little bit more like the NFL with parity, right? I don't think he loves that parallel, but it's too obvious to not bring up. Which, if you expand it and if we use our imagination, at the end of the day, is good news for a team that plays in a city that most NBA players don't seem to want to either move here to play for the Jazz or even come here to play for the other team against the Jazz. Like, we know the deal. So, we've already seen a couple of teams adversely affected by the second apron stuff. Denver, the Clips, some others losing talent. And it does seem like draft picks are going to be very valuable moving forward. Now, this year, the take-home from the Mitchell and Gobert trade start to come in. So 3 first-round picks, for the next few years, and also really clean books. And Zanuck and Ainge have been very deliberate in their approach here. So we could create a scenario, Tom, where the Jazz are a team that could capitalize by calling a team that is looking to shed some money and talent and offering them some picks and maybe some cap relief. Look, we're 2 games in, so I'm laughing as I ask you this, but do you anticipate any teams looking to shed legitimate talent as soon as this season? And do you think the Jazz could be buyers because of their treasure trove of assets?
I would bet against that. I think Danny Ainge is looking to add picks rather than give them up. But you're looking at teams like the Chicago Bulls with Zach LaVine. Do you want to take on that contract going forward to basically compete and be a 500 team? I'm not sure. He's got 2 more years on his deal at $46 million and $49 million. The player option in his final year. Is that a guy that you want to add to your team? Chicago probably would want to figure out a way to get off of Nikola Vucevic if their season is in the tank. And he's due for another year at $21 million. Is that something you want to do if you're the Utah Jazz? I think the other team that you look at is the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo is already, saying some crazy quotes to reporters in the preseason, telling Sam Amick, joking, basically looking around his staff and saying, "Oh, are you gonna if we lose, are you gonna get fired? Are you gonna get traded?" And my third eye was open on that one because this is new ownership in Milwaukee, and I do think that other teams like Golden State, like San Antonio, like OKC, like Utah, are watching that situation very closely. Is if that becomes more combustible there in Giannis's world, does he demand some sort of trade or try to get out of there? Damian Lillard, same question. But again, where the roster is at right now, if you acquire Damian Lillard and take on that contract and you're nowhere near contending, is it going to be the same situation where he's in right now, where he's like, I want to win right now. I don't want to spend the last years of my career on a 500 team. I just don't see what team right now has both the player that could move the Utah Jazz into title contention or, whether they're willing to give up draft picks to make that deal happen, because I think the Utah Jazz are going to be looking for draft picks rather than giving them up.
All right, moving off the Jazz now, let's get to since you brought it up and you're working with the Blazers now, at what point are we a little concerned about Scoot, player who I really liked during the draft process, and Portland's, kind of in the same stratosphere as the Jazz this year with pretty low expectations, but where are you at right now as far as your concern level of Scoot Henderson?
He's getting to the cup, like I said. He's number 3 in the NBA among guards in getting to the cup. He's getting to the free throw line. There is a real skill there. The jump shot hasn't really paid dividends, and that's another thing. Like, if you want to be De'Aaron Fox, and we're going to be broadcasting the game tonight against the Sacramento Kings, and I'm going to be watching, like if he wants to have that same burst as Russell Westbrook or De'Aaron Fox in the open court, the real reason why De'Aaron Fox made the leap is because of that jumper, right? Is because he became a knockdown shooter. And so that's the missing part of the game that he hasn't shown yet this season. But, he's the same age as Keontae George. He just, turned 20 last year, turning 21 in February. And so I'm probably going to hold out on, any sort of referendum on Scoot Henderson until next year, because not too many 20-year-olds in the NBA, especially at point guard, are great right away. There's a very short list. Keontae George is not on that list yet. Scoot Henderson isn't on that list yet, but in terms of one identifiable skill is he gets to the rim all the time. And he had 9 free throws in last night's game. And I do think that that is a veritable skill that he can build off of. And hopefully that jump shot rounds out into form, because he would be deadly as a player if he had a reliable J.
How real, Tom, is what we've seen from the Lakers so far? You know, every once in a while you get an Anthony Davis game and you're like, oh, yeah, that's why there were several people when he came out of school, you know, that were tabbing him as a generationally special player. And his deal has always been availability. He was actually pretty healthy last year. I just don't think he gets enough credit for it. And obviously, LeBron is still LeBron, even at that age. But 3 games under J.J. Redick, and they're clean. How real is this, in your opinion?
Have you seen the free throw totals in the NBA this year?
I have not studied them as closely as somebody like you. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. John Hollinger wrote a great piece at The Athletic today saying that through 5 days in the NBA schedule, free throws are up 20+%. So you're adding basically, an additional handful of free throws every game. And that was something that they were pulling back last year. I covered that at TomTheFinder.com, that the NBA was basically, the referees were swallowing their whistle and letting a lot of high contact go through and play on. A lot more physical in the playoffs. But Anthony Davis has been a huge beneficiary of this, I guess, easier whistle. They're not swallowing it. They're blowing that whistle like crazy in the early season. He's averaging 15 free throws per game in his first 3 games. Now, that's a product of the fact that the guys can't stop him. Minnesota, Phoenix, Sacramento, they haven't been able to stop him inside. He is attacking the rim, and they have no choice but to foul him maybe. But 15 free throws a game is outrageous. And so I don't know how much longer this free throw surge that we're seeing is going to last. But Anthony Davis, what he's doing right now is even like peak James Harden levels of foul baiting. 15 free throws per game is outrageous. And if he's going to be anywhere near there, in his career, he's about 7 or 8 free throws a game. He's going to be an MVP if he maintains anywhere near 10, 11, 12 free throws, because that's Joel Embiid's territory. So if he's Joel Embiid's territory and getting to the free throw line, yeah, he's going to be an MVP in today's NBA. And J.J. Redick, I don't know what he said to him, but this version of Anthony Davis for sure is an MVP caliber player.
So are we witnessing maybe the end of a really, really special stretch in Denver? I mean, the Westbrook thing for me, he's going to take a lot of heat. And he's not, the main impetus for their 2 losses. I just don't love that fit. I don't know that I would love to fit with him anywhere anymore. And a former MVP certainly deserves respect, and he's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. But, Jokic is such a delight and a joy to watch that it kind of feels a little Andrew Luck with the Colts-ish. Like, are they going to waste the remaining time, of his prime? What do you make of the slow start that we've seen from the Nuggets?
I mean, Russell Westbrook is shooting 2 of 18. 2 of 18.
Yep.
The offensive rating when he's on the floor is 70, which is by far the lowest. There's no one under 90 points per 100 possessions and he was making them. But the thing that was worrisome was the volume. I was like, what are they doing? Worrisome was the volume. I was like, what are they doing? They can't have Russell Westbrook, who's the worst high-volume three-point shooter in NBA history, taking threes like he's Michael Porter Jr. But that's what was happening. And they got drunk off of the idea that he somehow had figured out this jump shot after an entire career's worth of evidence that he's not a good three-point shooter. And this guy is, just bricking three-point shots left and right. He's not finishing at the rim. In the preseason, he wasn't either. And so I was like, this Denver Nuggets experiment is going to go south quickly. And even though they were a 5-star title contender in my title tiers that I do every week at the end of last season, I downgraded them to 3 stars at the outset of the preseason because of the Russell Westbrook acquisition and performance in the preseason. And this morning, I downgraded them again to a 2-star level title contender. This is a crime. You got Nikola Jokic in your prime, and this is your bench. Your anchor for your bench is Russell Westbrook. But then you look around and you got Peyton Watson, who's 1 for 10 from the floor as a bench player for the Denver Nuggets. Kevin O'Connor just put out a tweet. My co-host on the Kevin O'Connor show once a week at Yahoo Sports, he was tweeting just how putrid the offense is without Jokic on the floor. This is the last stage of Jokic playing nice and not being disgruntled as a superstar and saying, I need better players. He is the only MVP through his 9 years in the league, the only MVP in NBA history that has never played with an all-star or an all-NBA or an all-defensive member on his team in 9 years. That is unconscionable from the organization. They need to get him a co-star befitting of his talents. He has the weakest supporting cast up to this point in his career of anybody, any MVP. And that's got to change at some point. If it continues like this, I suspect that Jokic, his nice guy, I just want to be out there and play basketball, that whole thing I think is going to end soon.
All right, Tom, before I set you loose, I really am curious to see how Tom Thibodeau handles this kind of new look roster at his disposal, what the rotations look like, and whether or not he can make it work. And, you know, the Celtics just might be historically special, like in an era of what is supposed to be parity. Boston might just destroy it because they're really, really that good. And then they got a good win against the Pacer team that also early on doesn't look very good. So before I set you loose, early returns, 2 games, New York Knicks. Kat, how do you think it's looking?
Yeah, I wrote about it today at TomTheFinder.com. They're zigging while everyone's zagging. I mean, they are slowing the ball down. They are playing at a 90s pace. They're bringing back the 90s. I mean, it is insane what they're doing. In terms of, like, the NBA's throwing up threes. They're playing up-tempo. That's the modern NBA. Tom Thibodeau is getting in his DeLorean and going back in time to the 90s where he was an assistant under Jeff Van Gundy, because right now they have the slowest pace in the NBA. They are a team that goes deep into the clock almost every time down the floor, and they're not shooting a high volume of threes, even though they got Cat, who's the greatest three-point shooting big man in NBA history, self-proclaimed, by the way. They're not getting up a ton of three-pointers, and their roster depth is very thin. So maybe this team is built for playoff basketball, but it's October, and they got to do 82 games of this very slow, very methodical offense and hope that they are healthy. That's the thing, is like they just got to make the playoffs, and their team, their roster is very top-heavy. They got like 6 really good players. They just got to stay healthy. Honestly, that's my main mission is, yeah, they're slow. They don't chuck up a lot of threes like the rest of the NBA. They play a throwback 90s basketball. But they got the most important person on that staff is not Karl Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson or Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby or Tom Thibodeau. It's their medical staff. They got to stay healthy, and they got to make sure that they're ready for the playoffs, because that was the biggest thing that kept them out of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, is their health. And they got to hope in Tom Thibodeau's long history of injury problems that does not the injury bug does not spike up again, because that's the number one biggest factor in making sure that they're going to reach their potential. Is making sure those top 6 guys, including Deuce McBride, who's looked awesome, are healthy come April and May.
All right, Tom, where can everybody go find all of your work? You are a busy boy.
Yeah, and a dad and a husband on top of that. So TomTheFinder.com is my Substack. You can read my columns at yahoosports.com and also catch The Big Number, my new podcast, every Thursday with Dan Devine, as well as the Trailblazers Analytics Insider, every broadcast. If you want to catch us on League Pass, you should. Scoot is very interesting as a comp for Keontae George if you want to just watch how those two guys develop going this season. I am on the Blazers broadcast as well this year, so you can catch me on there for the Sacramento Kings game.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great week, okay?
You got it. Thanks, Ben.
All right, the great Tom Haber Show. Every Monday, dropping some NBA Daily knowledge on us on the NBA Daily Assist. Appreciate his time today. We're going to do a little RSL with Matt Crooks in the 4 o'clock hour, and then we're going to do Utah football, Scott Mitchell. Coming up next, we're going to give you our Big 12 power rankings. I'm sorry. We have to. It's a Monday. But let's bring in Ken from Lifestyle Men's Health on a Monday. Ken, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Spence?
I'm good. I appreciate your time. So, had a wedding over the weekend. Bunch of friends come in from out of town who I haven't seen in a number of years. And they all ask me, like, what are you doing? What's going on with you? Like, your skin looks better, your body looks better. Like, what exactly are you doing? And ultimately, it's because of my experience with Lifestyle Men's Health, where you guys have helped me out with testosterone therapy and vitality peptides. So that's been my experience with Lifestyle Men's Health. Let's hear about yours.
Isn't it amazing that we can actually change how we feel and look this day and age? I think it's freaking incredible. So, one of the things that we talk about here at Lifestyle Men's Health is let's get in touch with who we are as a person. And if you're not feeling good, you're a little sluggish as we get older, don't accept that. I mean, let's go ahead and help you. So if you actually call us, we'll give you a free consultation. We'll do the medical assessment, and we'll make sure that we take care of you. But as I mentioned last segment, you got to get off your assets to be able to do that. And our special that we're doing today, because I know you're going to ask, Spence, is we're doing 50% off our erectile dysfunction treatments, period. And then with that, because of the testosterone that's helped me and it's helped you, we're going to include 3 months for free.
It's a great offer. It's one of the best offers they've had. So you guys have probably heard our spots. You've been waiting to call. Today's the day. So here's the number. It's 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203. Or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Ken, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks, Spence.
All right. We got to do it. We can't not do it. You ready for it? Coming up next segment?
I suppose.
All right. It's our Big 12 Power Rankings. Do it every Monday. So stay tuned. And then it is Matt Crooks and Scott Mitchell. A lot to do on a Monday show. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right. Well, buckle up, kids. Strap in. Lock in. I appreciate Kayvon's excitement in that sounder, but was it really another exciting college football weekend for folks around these parts?
For some.
Man? All right.
For some.
All right. Well, I had to rank all 16 teams because you need space for the 2 teams in our state that are in the Big 12. Did you go as deep as I did? Did you go all the way to 16?
I did not.
Okay.
I'll leave that to you. I'll just do, and there's a real line of delineation starting to appear in the Big 12, which is kind of how things play out the back half of the season. So I at least ranked the 9 teams, Spence, that have what is really a mathematical opportunity to get to a Big 12 championship game.
Well, fire away, young man. We'll let you lead off.
At the bottom of that list is West Virginia. They're fine. They're better than I thought they would be, actually. But they're at the bottom of this list at number 9. ASU right there with them. They're 5-2. They're 3-2 in conference play. I just don't see many scenarios where they're in it at the end. That is also the case with Texas Tech and TCU, as well as Cincinnati, who comes in at number 5. They are the bottom team that really does have an opportunity to win it at the Big 12 level. It is Cincinnati coming in at number 5. Those are the teams, Spence, that are in the hunt, if you will, without, in my opinion, a real shot at winning the Big 12. That's Cincinnati, TCU, Texas Tech, ASU, and West Virginia. After that, you can get into what I believe will be, and as of today, the kind of Final Four of the conference so far. Colorado coming in at number 4. Obviously, what Deion has done in a calendar year and a half, almost 2 years at Colorado is remarkable. I still think that there are some issues with sustainability, with staying power, with whatever Colorado looks like without Deion Sanders. I think it's a conversation that'll need to be had in those offices in the near future. But as of right now, they are playing really good football. They come in at number 4. At number 3, they just got over what shouldn't have been a real tough matchup, but similarly to what BYU will be facing in their next matchup, it's a rivalry game. So it changes the pressure that is on that game. Kansas State gets over Kansas, which I think was a big hump on the remainder of their schedule. And coming in at number 3, it is Kansas State with one asterisk. I think Kansas State ends up playing in the Big 12 title game, even though, as of today, they are my number 3 team. At number 2, the only reason I don't have them at number 1 is because of the defense that I see in Ames, Iowa. BYU, a top 10 team as of today, Spence, in college football, and the Cougars control their own destiny going forward in Big 12 play. Of course, a big test coming into Rice-Eccles Stadium in a couple weeks, but we'll have more on that as the time comes along. And at number 1, I think it's the best defense in the Big 12. I still think that there are questions that they need to answer on the offensive side of the football. This is an Iowa State team, Spence, that I think had I don't want to say easier first half of the schedule, but when you look at their slate, the last month is when things really get tough for them. They got to go on the road. They've got ranked matchups. They've got all the big ones on the back half of their schedule. The front half of their schedule, it was kind of just getting over Iowa in that rivalry game. They did that. They had a couple of byes, and they, as of week 8, week 9, are still unblemished in Big 12 play along with BYU. They are the top 2 teams on my power rankings today, but again, I mentioned, I think Kansas State ends up playing in that Big 12 title game. We'll see how that plays out in the next calendar month.
So, according to ESPN's Football Power Index, K-State right now is the best team in the Big 12.
That's kind of where I'm basing my thoughts, right? It's not only that, it's also how they looked against BYU versus the final score of that game. That was a much closer football game. If you go back and watch the tape in the trenches, it was a dogfight, and the final score did not end up looking like the actual game did.
Yeah, it's interesting because the FPI doesn't necessarily reflect what the standings reflect. The FPI for ESPN to win the Big 12, it's K-State 1, Iowa State 2, Colorado 3, and Brigham Young 4. They have Utah all the way down at 13 in the Big 12. The FPI, the 54th ranked team in the country. So obviously it has been a really, really rough season for Coach Witt and the guys up on the Hill. I'll just run through mine real quick. I actually moved BYU up to 1 going on the road. They've answered every question that has been asked of them. So rise and shout. The Cougars are out at number 1. Atop the table with the Big 12 power rankings. I, like Porter, has been very impressed with Iowa State and excited to see that game coming up. We'll see what's at stake, if anything's at stake at all for Utah, which I doubt at this point there will be any ramifications. But they're in town on November the 23rd. It's the final home game for Utah football this year. So I have Iowa State at 2. Like Porter, I'm very impressed with K-State. I have them at 3. And you've got to give Deion, Coach Prime, a ton of credit with what he's done down in Boulder, and they continue to roll. In conference play, they got a home win over a pretty solid Cincinnati team. And like Brigham Young, I think Colorado has deserved some bragging rights here. I have them at 4. Aforementioned Cincinnati is 5. Baylor's been a lot better. Dave Aranda might have saved his job here. They rise to 6 in my poll this week. TCU's at 7. I have West Virginia at 8, Texas Tech at 9. Arizona State had a bye, but I did move them down to 10. Just kind of crowded in the middle here. And then we move over to Texas Tech. UCF, I moved them up a slot. They actually fired their defensive coordinator after their loss to BYU. Kansas is weird because they've actually played in a ton of really close games. It's kind of like the way we talked about BYU last year in the Big 12. They had like 4 or 5 one-possession games late that didn't go their way, overtime losses and such. But, fact of the matter is they're 2-6, 1-4 in Big 12 play. Have them at 12. I have Arizona at 13. And I cannot believe I'm saying this. I have Houston at 14. And then 2 of the 3 favorites to win the Big 12 are at the bottom of the Big 12 power rankings today. I have Utah at 15. And Oklahoma State, who has not won a conference game, at 16. I mean, Porter, I'll reiterate what I said earlier during crosstalk with Sean and trying to get things rolling on the show today. I get things wrong. It happens in the business. You like to be right, but sometimes you're not. I don't know that I've ever been more wrong about anything in this business than I have been about Utah football this year. I'm out of explanations.
It's perplexing. It is, but as you mentioned, there is a lot of context around it, right? It does seem like the wheels have fallen off, but it just seems like a weird year in the conference as well. It's not limited to just Utah. Oklahoma State kind of dealing with a similar thing in Stillwater, and these are not only the 2 of the teams that were picked to compete for the conference, Spence, but also the 2 most stable and long-standing programs in the conference, right? So it's surprising on a number of fronts, including that one. And yeah, man, I don't know where the Utes have to turn right now, because the answers to me aren't there personnel wise. They're not on the roster. And what you have to do then is, recruit other players, get other people on your staff, figure things out. Obviously, we've already seen some changes. Don't need to maybe be wholesale, but something's got to happen between now and the next time Utah wins a football game. Otherwise, that's going to be a long time down the road.
The kick time has been announced for BYU Utah. Unfortunately, it is going to be at 8:15, November the 9th. And, I think we're going to wait a little bit to see exactly where the spread settles in. But both teams on a bye. Right now, this is an old money line. We're going to wait to kind of check out that line. Now, ultimately, both teams on a bye, so you're going to expect both teams healthy and both teams ready to go. But, man, it is really – everything is, as I said last week, it's like Seinfeld, Bizarro World. Everything is, the opposite of what we were expecting all year. So we'll see. We'll see if there are any changes. We're going to do the song and dance now with the quarterback stuff with Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose. I'm sure it will not be announced. Keep BYU on their heels, and then we'll find out, when they run out to take the field. All right, let's welcome in my guy, Doug, from Farmer and Chemist. Doug, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I appreciate your time today. So let's start with what you guys have helped me out with some of those gummies to help me get some rest. Now, as I say, every time that you guys hop on, let's get you off some of those sleep meds that have adverse effects and they're also addicting. This is not that. So what can you tell us about how you can help people find some sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. We think about the Ambiens, the Xanax, some of the other prescription drugs that folks use to sleep. They're not amazing for long-term use. They are addictive, as you mentioned. And you think about some of the non-prescription items that you can buy over the counter. They're also not great and have several side effects. So best alternative that we've found, and we're pharmacists, is CBD with another cannabinoid called CBN and enough THC to make it all work really, really well for a gummy that provides fantastic relaxation and a very good night's sleep.
Also, folks out there struggling with physical pain, which is a real thing. And, as Pat Riley had this great saying, back pain will change your personality. And ultimately, I know there are people out there suffering, trying to alleviate that pain with some meds that also have adverse effects. How can you, Doug, help people that are suffering with physical pain day to day?
Absolutely. So pain, I think if we did a poll, probably 40% of the country has pain on Mondays after painful weekends like we watched this last one. We're all hurting a little bit, or most of us. So getting over that pain, there's gummies that help with full body pain relief, the aches and pains that are all over. And if you're looking to target a specific area, an arm, a joint, a leg, a neck, a back, then Problem Salved, which is a topical CBD ointment with some CBG, which is an amazing anti-inflammatory, and rub that on once to twice a day, and relief in literally 5 or 6 minutes that lasts anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. It's just amazing stuff. And everything is non-prescription. It's all over the counter. You don't need a card. You don't have to go to your doctor. You can just come into our store.
What would you recommend, Doug, for people to just get educated a little bit, get more information, and then what's the special offer you have for listeners?
Yeah, we have Like Everybody podcast, so you can listen to You, Me, and CBD, and that will educate you on all the science. We nerd out on tons of different topics that teach people about CBD and appropriate use. You can also come into our store at 7719 South Main Street in Midvale and talk to us, or go online, farmerandchemist.com. And for ESPN listeners, if you're fans of the show, you get 20% off if you mention ESPN 700 in the store, or use that on the promo code ESPN 700 at farmerandchemist.com.
Doug, thank you, sir. Have a great week, okay?
Thank you. Take care.
All right, Farmer and Chemist, check him out. Now let's bring in Ken from Lifestyle Men's Health. So if you haven't called, today's a great day to call Lifestyle Men's Health because it might be the best offer they've had, and they always have great offers for us. So, Ken, let's hear about your experience. What do you want our listeners to know about how you can help them at Lifestyle Men's Health?
Spence, I think I'm going to start off with erectile dysfunction, which I'm a client. That's actually how I met Dr. Angela Peterson. And it's done such an amazing thing for me. I actually went in business with her. And with that, it's not an easy subject to talk about, but it's natural. And call today. Let us come in. Let's do a free assessment, and let us tell you how we can help you. So where, there's your confidence gets back. It's not, because it gets in our head. When we want to, be with our partner and things just don't work like they used to when we were younger. Well, we can actually turn back time, not only on our physical side, but also on that side too. So give us a call. We're going to have 50% off of that for the erectile dysfunction services. We'll throw in the 3 months of the TRT, plus I'm going to do one more. Anybody who calls and mentions ESPN 700, I'm going to give them a free gift that creates immediate results in the bedroom. So give us a call.
There we go. It's not going to get better than that. If you've been waiting to call, Lifestyle Men's Health, today's the day. It's 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Ken, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks, Spence.
Got a little RSL coming your way. Matt Crooks is going to join the program. Then back to Utah football with Scott Mitchell. Then we'll launch you into the 5 o'clock hour of the program on a Monday right here on ESPN 700. Little rain falling in downtown Salt Lake earlier, but the sun is shining now. It's a tough Monday for a lot of sports fans in our market because a lot of the teams are not playing well and they're losing games. But RSL is right now kind of our only hope. BYU football playing really well, but RSL, they're back at it coming up tomorrow, hopefully starting what will look like a very long playoff push. And our next guest, friend of the program, good to have Matt Crooks back on the drive. Matt, happy Monday, buddy. How we doing?
Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. I appreciate your time. So you guys chomping at the bit? You ready to get at it tomorrow?
Yeah, we're excited. I guess this is where the season really starts for us, and these games have come with a bit more pressure now. But it's an exciting time to be playing and just see what the future brings. For
sure. And I want to start big picture, and then we'll kind of hone in a little bit in a vacuum. But now that you have been here for a number of months and you've played a number of matches for Pablo, I just wanted to kind of revisit how your Utah experience has been, how you like it around here.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a totally new experience for me. Totally different culture to immerse myself in. I've tried to do that to the best of my ability. Loads of different nationalities to play with their own kind of playing styles that I've never been involved with before. So no, it's been a learning experience for me. I've learned a lot about myself on and off the pitch, I think. So no, it's been valuable, and I've enjoyed it.
So it feels like Pablo has gone out of his way to really try to walk everybody through exactly how much of a connector you are during some post-game media or every time he has a chance to kind of talk about the state of the team. And he joins us on a weekly basis, and we always end up talking about your work rate. And I'm sure you want more than 3 goals and more than 5 assists, right? Like, I know you want the stats, but it does feel like your contributions are ones that really can't be measured with numbers. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have scored more goals and had a few more opportunities, but listen, it's not about the individual, it's about the collective, and the team's done well. We've finished third, record points total, got to the CONCACAF Champions Cup, so that's the main objective, really. I'm sure in time goals will come back for me and I'll get opportunities, but if the team's performing, then that's kind of my main concern. So yeah, I'm not too worried. I've scored goals in my career, so I'm sure they'll come back to me at some point.
but ultimately, Matt, it feels like the sentiment is, I know you want the goals, I know you want the assists, but a lot of what Pablo is asking you to do is serve as a connector, right, between like midfielders and maybe Chicho up top. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think naturally I've always been more of a midfielder, like a number 8. I played that position most of my career. So naturally for me, I'd probably drop a little bit deeper than maybe a natural number 10 would, and try and get on the ball a little bit more than others. But yeah, I just try and get the play my game, obviously to the style that the team wants to play in, but play my own game with freedom and try and express myself that way.
So, how would you characterize? Because I was at the Vancouver game, and so I was able to chat with Kurt and Jason and a lot of people with the club because undefeated in 5 heading into the playoffs. That's obviously a good thing. It feels like some of the defensive miscues have been cleaned up, and Pablo also talks a lot about defending as a group and making sure this is a team thing, so we're not just putting it on Gavin or Zach or whatever. So. Unbeaten in 5, Matt, but entering the playoffs, how would you characterize the form of RSL right now?
Yeah, it's been good. I think a couple of those draws should have been wins. We dropped a couple of points in a couple of those games where we should have just closed out the game. So really, we probably disappointed that we didn't pick up more points in the end, but we're unbeaten in 5. Like you say, it's not just on the defenders to defend, it's a team thing. You see all the best teams in the world work the hardest off the ball, and then they get the rest with the ball. So I think we need all 11 players in sync with that, and that's what we've had the last few games.
What are the challenges of the roster turnover situation? Obviously, Andres was a big part of your early success. Yeah. He accounted for 22 goals, 13 goals, 19 assists. Yeah. And, they sell him. He moves on to France. And, of course, it was a good fee for the club, so I understand why they did it. And then I could keep going.
Yeah.
You know the deal. You guys brought in 5 new players. What are the challenges of trying to acclimate to new talent around you, Matt?
Yeah, of course, it's a new challenge. He's still trying to learn. I mean, I was trying to learn what Andres was doing still, and then obviously he left, and wish him the best of luck in France. I know he scored his first goal, and he's a great kid, so I wish him all the best there. But then Dom comes in. I think he's settled in really well, but like you say, you've still got to kind of get to know what moves they make, how they like to play, stuff like that. So, yeah, of course, it comes with its challenges, but we're not complaining. We've put ourselves in a good position, and like I say, it's playoffs now, and it's all to play for, so we kind of just got to crack on with it.
So you referenced it, and I've been either with the club or covering the club since the first day it was brought here in 2004. So I was around for all of Jason's great teams and saw that 2000. I think it's the 2012 team who set the record for points in a season, and you guys break that. I know you want to lift trophies. Pablo talks about it all the time. I know the goal is to make a run and hopefully lift MLS Cup. But put it into perspective for us. What in the locker room does it mean to break this single season all-time record?
No, of course, it's great. I think from my standpoint, I'm obviously used to the European style with the league running, so it's kind of like not less playoffs and more like over the course of the season how well you do. And I think it shows consistency of how we played. And obviously there's dips and people go through dips in form and players have highs, but I think over the course of the season it shows the strength of the group and the players that we've got and the talent that there is, whether that's at the start of the season or now. And to obviously bring home, I think it was 59 points, was obviously a great achievement for us, but we know now that that's kind of irrelevant and we've got some big games coming up.
So, as you know, there was a stretch there where it felt like if Chicho only scored 1 goal, he was having an off night because he was so dominant as you guys went 15 straight without a loss. Now, he hasn't scored since back in July. Help us understand, and ultimately with a guy like that, he gets one, it feels like the floodgates will open. But is that a result of new teammates? Is that a result of maybe a residual mental effect from the suspension? And are you seeing things in training that indicate that maybe the bank account will be open once again by Chicho during this playoff run?
Yeah, listen, I can't speak for Chicho or how his mental state is, but I wouldn't. Obviously, he's still acclimating to new players like we all are. But this happens in football. Sometimes you go through these periods where you maybe don't score as many goals as you want. I've been doing it all season, really. And you just got to keep going, keep working hard. And eventually, if you do keep getting those spots, and the results will come, and the goals will come. So I've got full faith in him. The quality's there. I know he's got full faith in himself. So I'm not too worried about him not scoring recently. They'll come soon enough.
So as far as the way Pablo has decided to implement some of the new players, I want to just kind of break this down a little bit and have you help me understand exactly what we're trying to do here. So Diogo feels like a 10 to me, Matt. I'm not the coach. Obviously, I'm not an expert, but Pablo has moved him around a little bit, out wide too. Where do you think Diogo, and based off of what you know about his skill, where do you think the best spot is for him?
Probably 10, yeah. I'd agree with you. He's probably a 10.
So you like him more centralized?
That's it. Yeah, I think he's a 10. I mean, our 10 doesn't really play as a central 10. Mm-hmm. He's the more towards the right. So we don't really play with a conventional number 10. But he's definitely probably vying for the same spot that I am. But Diego's got huge amounts of talent, and he's a really good guy, good professional. So, listen, if he plays and I don't, then I can't complain. He's a great player, and he's got an abundance of talent. I just have to keep working hard and training and show my worth come game night.
Certainly. We had Diego on the show last week, just a delightful kid, and talk about a guy in form right now, yeah? I mean, a couple of goals the last few games, and I like to say it's the luck of coming on the show, Matt, which means you're going to score tomorrow, just so you know. But what have you witnessed from Diego? Like, why do you think he's upped his game so much? I mean, he obviously has a ton of talent, but tell me what you're seeing from him.
Yeah, Diego's a great kid as well. He's willing to learn. He's got, like you say, he's got great natural talent. But I think he he knows that he has to work on his game to kind of take it to that next level. He's done really well this season, but I think the aim for him is to kick on even more and really progress. So I've tried directing him the right ways every now and then and giving him little nuggets of information. Whether he listens to me or not, it's a different thing. But no, he's a good kid. He's got great ability, and I look forward to seeing what he does in the future.
So it does feel like Pablo's kind of leaning on you as one of the leaders in the locker room. Is that fair to say? And what does that role mean, Matt?
Yeah, I'm one of the older ones now. I still feel 21 in my head.
Good.
But I was talking about it yesterday. I think I'm like the third or fourth oldest. So yeah, I guess it's using my experience to kind of, I don't know. I don't feel like if lads want to speak to me about stuff, and I'll give them my thoughts on things, but kind of just doing the right things day in, day out at training. I think that's where your results come, working on the training ground, training how you play, getting in early, doing your work, doing your gym, eating right, just kind of living your life like you should be doing. So, yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm really vocal on the pitch, but try and lead in my own style, which is kind of doing the right thing.
So I've asked a number of your teammates this. I'm going to ask you the same question, certainly as a leader. I don't know what the approach is when something happens like Brian Vera spitting in someone's face and for the second straight year really letting the club down. And look, he's really good. And it's not just you're losing a center back. We know that at times there are designed set pieces to utilize that cannon of a left leg he has. And I'm sure he's gutted because it's not just a regular season game. He's out tomorrow, too. Tell us how you feel about the Vera situation, how it was kind of handled, and how he is doing.
Yeah, obviously that happened. You can't really control that. It's one of those things in the moment that happened, and obviously it wasn't great. And I think Brian knows that. He doesn't need anyone to tell him what he did wasn't exactly the right thing to do. But listen, we all make mistakes. We have to move past it, and I'm sure the club maybe spoke to him and just maybe tried to refocus him now for the games coming up, because we can't have anyone slacking or feeling sorry for themselves. It's kind of, we all got to be in it together. So hopefully we can all move forward. I'm sure we are. I speak my very limited Spanish with Brian, and I think his actions weren't an indication of who he is as a person. But listen, yeah, like I said, we all make mistakes. No one's perfect, and as long as he kind of learns from it and makes himself a better player and person, then that's all you can ask for.
For sure. Well said. Unfortunately, it does leave a little bit of a hole because now Philip Quinton has been knocked up a little bit with an injury that he picked up against Vancouver. And I'm not really sure what that's going to look like. I think, if I can recall correctly, Pablo decided to put Emeka at right back because Emeka did play right back last year. He brought in Nelson, and then he put Javane in the middle next to Justin. I think that's what he did.
Yeah.
So
that's right. Yeah,
okay. So do you think that's the plan? I mean, because the center back depth right now, Matt, is not great.
I don't know. I've played there in my career a few times, so
all right.
I'm tall enough. So you never know. You might see me there tomorrow at the back. Now listen, we've got good depth in the squad, and obviously it's unfortunate what happened with Quincy. I think he's done really well when he's come into the team. He's had an assurance and good with the ball, and obviously defensively as well. So it's unfortunate for Phil, but this is football. It happens. He knows that, and he's trying to get back as quick as possible. But I thought Javane was great at centre half, and like I say, Mecca's played right back before last season. So obviously it's not great timing, but as a squad, we have to kind of, like I've said so many times already, we have to kind of get on with it and play the game in front of us. But if the gaffer needs me to play centre half, then I'm ready.
I love it. I love that attitude. I'm going to text Pablo and tell him that you've offered to play center back against Minnesota tomorrow. Yeah. I wonder how you would characterize the defensive state of the club, because like I said on the intro, it does feel like some of the defensive issues have been better as of late, because for a while, and there were some bad, mistakes by the keeper, but we certainly know that when it comes to the way Pablo wants to play, it's not all on one player, and I'm not pouring it on either Zach or Gavin, but it does feel like it's been better. Matt, would you agree with that? And if so, why?
Yeah, certainly. I certainly think so. I think it's a team thing. Like I said before, we've all got to do it together. I think if one person's out of position or one person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you're as strong as your weakest link. And if someone's not doing it, then it's kind of easy to play through. So we all need to be on the same page in what we're doing defensively, and I think we've done that in the last few games. These games are going to be tight, so keeping a clean sheet is always going to be super helpful.
All right, Matt, before I set you loose, and this is just me saying this, okay? I'm not trying to get you in trouble. But from my vantage point, Minnesota is like scared of engaging with you guys. And I don't like that style. You know, you've had a couple of games against them, scoreless draw, 1-1 draw. So if Minnesota rolls in tomorrow, and if they decide to utilize the style, which I think they're going to try to grab a road result, what are the biggest challenges? Somebody like you scored a ton of goals, always been an attacking player. Like when a team parks the bus, sometimes it feels like it's impossible to find the back of the net, like playing a long ball and just pray or something. What are the keys to breaking down a defensive unit like Minnesota if they decide to basically track back the entire game?
Yeah, listen, I don't know him very well, but I know their manager quite well. We have the same agent, so I've been trying to text my agent to get some information out of him, but to no avail. But no, they were very good defensively in the last game. I think we have to move the ball quickly, make a move. Tired, obviously the altitude's a factor always. But we have to try to penetrate, take risks, and just be ruthless when the chances come, if they do come. So yeah, I think just moving the ball quickly and being prepared to take risks, and when the ball is given away, which it will happen at times, we try to take more risks and react quickly to get the ball back. But I think we've got enough starting the game and enough on the bench to create chances and have our moments to win the game.
Well, Matt, you should know Philip Quinton came on the show the week before he scored. Diego came on the show the week before he scored. So there's a little pressure on you to capitalize on the radio luck here to get a goal tomorrow. Okay, bud?
Right, okay. I'll try my best for you, Matt.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Nice to speak to you.
All right. Matt Crooks, midfielder for RSL. He has been really lauded and supported by the club for just his work rate. Now, as he referenced, all these guys want to score goals and get assists. So on the season, Matt Crooks with 3 goals with 5 assists. He has played in 29 games. He's started 23 of them. But really, he leads the team in pass percentage. Matt's 1 with 87%. Diego's 2, 85%. Ojeda and Emeka are both in the 90s. Jeez. Those 2 central mids are pretty good. But, you know, Matt obviously has been applauded as a hard worker and a connector. RSL is taking on a Minnesota team, as I said, who has been, at least in my opinion, a little afraid to engage with RSL, parking the bus, as they say, in soccer, trying to get 11 behind the ball and just slowing it down. And, look, that is tactically something that can be effective. RSL did that against Seattle in the playoffs a couple of years ago when they went on their Western Conference MLS playoff run when nobody saw it coming. But it's a challenge because goals are hard, man, and that's the deal with this sport. That's why they're like a miracle. It's why it feels like such a dramatic spectator sport to watch. And if Minnesota goes up early and they're simply parking the bus, I'm not sure that that's going to be something this fan base is going to enjoy. But tomorrow night, RSL back in action. The playoffs are here. Fall soccer is awesome. Now, fall football, of course, top of mind. We're going to bring in Scott Mitchell coming up. But it is a 6:50 kick time tomorrow night, and that game will be on Apple TV, or head over to rsl.com. I don't know if there are any tickets left. I'm sure Trey's claiming that it's been sold out for a month, but we'll have to see. So check it out. rsl.com is where you find the information. That's brought to you today by my friends at Diamond Coat. Diamond Coat Premium Home Siding. They're new here along the Wasatch Front. You won't believe what they can do to your home's exterior. Diamond Coat Siding Next Generation System delivers the exterior transformation you deserve to level up to the neighborhood standard. They're the total design solution that shows your personal style with endless styles and colors for limitless customization. And their 30-year no-fade warranty means your vision will last for decades to come. Designed beyond limits, beyond expectations. With Diamond Coat, now available here in the Salt Lake City area. Premium home siding, limitless potential, endless styles and colors. They're your total design solution. It's year-round weather ready, durable in all seasons, which of course is important here in Utah. Discover more information at diamondcoatsiding.com. That's Diamond Coat, spelled Kote, siding.com. Scott Mitchell joins us coming up next for some Utah football. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones. And 60 pounds values. Okay, tonight, man. That's who's on a Monday afternoon, the legend himself, Scott Mitchell. Scott, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. There might be some folks up on the hill that aren't good right now, but you know, life. I can't complain. I'm good.
There you go. Yeah, I like that attitude. And look, last week I was the guy that was holding on to the final branch before we actually tumble out of the tree. And now I'm face down in the mud, Scott. Now I'm face down in the mud. I got nothing. Like, I get a lot of things wrong. You know, you've done this job for a long time. You get some things right. You get some things wrong. I've got plenty wrong. I don't know, and I'm just speaking for me personally, that I've ever been so wrong about something as wrong as I've been about this Utah football team all year. I'm out of answers, man, just from a macro standpoint. Where's Scott Mitchell on this?
Well, I feel your pain and I feel your, bewilderment because really you think about the first part of the season, you play SUU and it looks really good. And Cam Rising, okay, he's back from his injury, and Baylor starts out amazing, and then he just runs into the whatever he ran into, and it just and there goes the season. And I know it's not just on one player, but Cam Rising, when he was here and he was healthy, he was one player that really changed the whole trajectory of this program. I mean, playing San Diego State, and he comes in the second half of that game, 4 or 5 years, or 7, 8, 9, I don't know how many years he's been at Utah, and he was electric, and he was different, and he brought an attitude, and he brought a belief that just wasn't there. And he did some incredible things, and when, to me, it's so much about, you look at college football, and your fortunes really do, in a lot of ways, center around a really, really good quarterback. And all the good teams in the country have them, and they all either, a lot of them aren't homegrown, hired these guns, and a lot of them have worked out. I mean, there's some that haven't, but a lot of these quarterbacks in the transfer portal and have panned out. And that's really the biggest kind of, because the defense has played well enough to win every single game that we've lost. I mean, they really have. And the offense just has been anemic. And the way I look at it is there's something really weird going on the offensive side of the ball. And it's probably they got a true freshman who's been playing, and he's just okay. And he's just, he hasn't improved as the year's gone on. And you're seeing the same performance every single week when he's out there. It's just very, very pedestrian, and there's just not a lot there. And it's not saying he can't get there down the road, but right now he's just not ready to play. And so you've just been in a tough situation with the quarterback there. But the other thing you're seeing is offsides penalties. You're seeing guys drop balls. You're seeing guys not come back to the football. You're seeing very inaccurate throws. You're seeing a lot of fundamental things that if you're going to be consistent offensively, you just can't have guys shooting you in the foot right and left. And that's what's happening. It's not just the quarterback play. It's across the board, everyone play. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset of being focused and taking care of those little details, because those little details, that's really what the difference is between winning and losing, and between having a consistent performance offensively and not. You can't just go through the motions in practice and just run the plays. You have to run the plays to a level of excellence. And if you don't, when you get in a game, it just doesn't show up. And so you just see these things, these fundamental things across the board not happening. And that's why this team's been really poor and inconsistent offensive. Now, the good news to that, Spence, is it's all fixable. Like, you have to change your focus. You have to change your practice habits. You have to have a commitment to being excellent when you're out on the field, and you can do that. And whether you are perfect about it, not relevant. It's the approach and the attitude that's the important thing. And I'm just not seeing that and it's really the offensive side of the ball for me.
Yeah, and we'll get over the defense in a moment because, to your point, there are a lot of metrics that indicate this is still a top-shelf defense, but they're not getting to the quarterback and they're not turning the other team over. I mean, they're doing a lot of things well. They're just not doing the things that we're used to seeing them do well when their head coach is Coach Witt. But we'll get to that in a moment because I do want to stay on the offensive side of the ball. Now, we talked last week, and this is not a knock. I just wonder aloud what Mike Bajakian can find in an Andy Ludwig offense that Andy Ludwig himself couldn't find. So now that we have one game, which is a real small sample size, did anything different or unique stand out to you based off of the different play caller?
Well, this isn't going to be a popular statement, Spence, but this is what I saw, and that is Brandon Rose actually looked pretty decent at quarterback. That was the most positive thing that I saw out of that game, and it was the decision on where to throw the ball. He threw the ball accurately. The interception wasn't some just what is harebrained, what are you thinking kind of throw. He's trying to make a play. It's third down. The receiver needs to come back to him in that situation. And I didn't really, and he had guys drop the ball on him that he threw very accurately. He seemed really poised. He ran with decisiveness. He played with decisiveness, and he, and he's barely got to play. He's the guy with the most experience understanding this offense. He's had the most reps at it, whether it's been in practice or where, and it's not been in a game, but he's probably the most prepared and ready to play from an experience, maturity, understanding. And if it's me, and I think it was the right thing to do because that offense was going nowhere. It wasn't going anywhere with Isaac. And I'm not like, oh, Isaac's, a bust or anything like that. He's young. He's just a young kid that just needs to grow and mature, and he's just not ready to play yet. He's just not. And so if there was anything positive out of that, maybe more of Brandon Rose executing this offense might work well for this team.
Huh. Interesting. So I guess I'll follow up and just ask you because here we go again, Scott. Like, we're going to do the song and dance thing for the next 12 days before BYU about who's it going to be. There's going to be coy. We won't find out probably. My guess is a kick, but I guess I'll just follow up and ask you, do you believe that starting with Brigham Young in 12 days under center should be Brandon Rose?
If you're going to make a change, it's a great time to do it because he's going to get all the practice reps. He's going to get 2 weeks of practice reps, and he's going to get a little bit of timing. He threw the ball very well with the limited time he had in the game. He actually threw the ball very well. So if you're going to do it, it's certainly the right time to do it. And sometimes that change, can be a spark. I mean, everyone was like Charlie Brewer, and out Cam Rising. Like, the coaches want Charlie Brewer to be the starter, and Charlie was running this offense like a lot of these quarterbacks you've seen the last couple of years run it, and then all of a sudden Cam Rising comes in and it's a whole different offense. So maybe that's the situation we're in here because no one knows what Rose can do at this time. I mean, because he's never played, and no one knew what Cam Rising could have done. And I just saw a guy who wanted to play football when Brandon Rose got out there and played. So, you got to talk Isaac Wilson off the ledge, because he's young and you don't want to mess him up. But it might be a good time for him to just kind of take a seat back. I know a lot of people are like, no, throw him in there, give him all of this experience. And I'm just not seeing a lot of improvement right now from Isaac Wilson. Like I'm a big fan of game reps and all that stuff, but I'm seeing more regression with Isaac than I am improvement.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see. I mean, look, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm kind of surprised, Scott, because from my vantage point, I just figured at this point. I mean, look, if we're honest, what really is on the table? And if the only thing that you're playing for is to play spoiler, that's a bad indicator of where you're at as a program. So if look, a couple more wins, you get to a throwaway bowl. Obviously, you like the bowl experience for the seniors, upperclassmen. We don't want to see anybody go out on a downturn, and certainly if this is Kyle's last year, which a lot of people believe that it is, I have no insight into that, you do want to go out with a little bit more of a bang than you're doing right now. But if there really isn't much on the table as far as what we thought could be on the table to start the year, I just thought you might as well let Isaac go through the growing pains, right, and just give him some reps.
And I've been a believer of that, and I am a believer in that. But I'm also in a believer of, there's sometimes guys just aren't ready to play.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is, if my freshman year at Utah, had I played, I probably would have been okay. But having, a maturity, just being in the program, having some confidence in myself and my ability, I was far suited to start playing the second year and then, and beyond. But it's a tall order for a true freshman to step in there and really, do well. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to put all these ghosts in a kid's closet that come out later on in his career. If all he's learning when he goes out on the field is like these bad images, and that you don't want to put that in a guy's mind either. And there really is a time when some kids they're just not quite ready for it. They just aren't, and it's okay. It doesn't mean it's the end of him. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that in this moment right now, it's probably best for you to just take a step back. If I saw him like, okay, there's improvement, but I've kind of seen the same performance the last 4 weeks, pretty much since he's been in there. I haven't seen a step forward with Isaac Wilson.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just kind of trying to dig down a couple different levels to understand what's going on. I mean, look, I could run through all the metrics. They're 15th in total they're 11th in rushing, they're 10th in passing, they're 15th in efficiency. Like, by any measurable metric, this is one of the bottom 3 or 4 offenses in all of the Big 12. But let me go back to asking you once again about the play calling. Away from either Brandon or Isaac, did you see anything from Mike in his first game, simply from calling plays, that gives you some hope that this might look different starting with BYU?
I mean, honestly, no. Yeah. I mean, it's the same offense. I didn't see anything. I go, wow, okay, that's kind of creative. That's a little bit different. Utah was, clearly, I thought, trying to establish the run pretty patiently, but there wasn't any. They weren't really running the ball great. They're also running against a front designed to stop the run, and they've. I've been seeing these same looks from all the teams. They're just challenging Utah to throw the football and just say your quarterback's got to beat us, and they haven't been able to do that. And so when you are running it, you're running with kind of your hand tied behind your back a little bit, and so it's tough sledding. But I think that's the game plan. They said, look, we're gonna run the ball. We're just gonna try to work off of that, and I don't think it worked very well for Isaac in the game. Moving forward, I don't know if they change that, they do more, but yeah, the offense, there wasn't anything to me that I go, well, okay, that gives me a lot of excitement and hope. Spence, you're talking to a guy that's been in some of the greatest offenses in like the history of the NFL. I'm not joking. Yeah. Like I mean, the offense I had it. So for me to watch all of this from just the ground level forever, look, Kyle Whittingham's a defensive-minded coach. It's not about playing great offense. It never is. And so, I don't see where Mike Bajakian's going to come in and all of a sudden they're going to have a great offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want honesty and truthful, interactions on this show. So I appreciate you kind of giving us the medicine, because I certainly respect your eye in a way that others probably can't see it, because you played it at the highest of levels. I wonder what your thoughts are, Scott. After the game, Mekhi Bernard essentially said, I know what's up. I'm just not going to say it out loud. Now, if I had to guess, it's simply the play of the quarterback position. And, maybe Mekhi doesn't want to throw anybody under the bus, but that led to a lot of speculation about what exactly is going on behind closed doors. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sure that plays into it. I'm sure that there may be, there's a chemistry thing with teams, and and it's not the culture of the program, it's the chemistry of the players and how they interact with each other. Because you look at the body language, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. When you see guys not focused in games, something else is going on in their mind. They're upset by, maybe I didn't get the same kind of money this guy did, or whatever, because that's kind of creeping into college football and these players. And when you start getting those thoughts, or your focus goes outside of, hey, your job every week is to get yourself ready to play. And you don't get yourself ready to play when you're wondering, is the quarterback going to throw me the football? Is the coach going to call a play for me? Am I, I'm not involved in the offense. Excuse me, you have this distraction, and you have things and it impacts the way you play. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing guys not doing those fundamental things, and they should be, and I know they're coached to do it, but they're not doing it, and that's not just the quarterback. And so these guys are distracted in some way. They're not putting in the focus. They're not putting in the time to mentally and physically prepare themselves to play. Why they're doing it, if they're upset that the quarterback's not playing very well, and you go, well, we got no shot to win the game anyways. It is impacting their play. I mean, it just is. So there's some dynamic, some chemistry going on that team that's not conducive to production and winning.
Yeah, and to your point, and just in order to be fair, let's move off the quarterback position, because we'll see what happens against BYU, whether it's Isaac or Brandon. But the truth is, there are not a lot of things that are working right now. I mean, kicker missed a couple field goals. Brandon's interception set up a game-winning field goal. And the defense, Scott, there are a lot of metrics that, like I said, indicate that the defense is very good. They're second in scoring D. They're number 1 in total D. They're number 3 in rushing. They're number 3 in passing. They're number 3 in efficiency. But they are not getting to the quarterback. They have not had a sack in 3 games. They're 11th in the conference in sacks. They're last in the conference in fumbles forced. They're second to last in the conference in fumbles recovered. They're 9th in interceptions. Like, there are metrics to indicate that the defense still clearly is the strength of the team. That's not a hot take. But what do you make of what I just perceived to be, when a team is coached by Kyle Whittingham, they get to the quarterback, they force turnovers, they play that complementary football? What do you most attribute to the lack of pressure that Utah is being able to drum up on the opposing team's quarterback?
I'm going to throw it back on the offense.
All right.
I am, and I'll tell you why. The offense has not performed well, hasn't driven the ball down the field, hasn't given the defense time to rest in games. So as games progress and go on, its defense gets tired. And they've been down a couple of – Connor O'Toole being out has hurt them a lot. And he kind of, gave them a good spark this last week when he was in the game, and he wasn't in there. I'm sure they're slowly kind of bringing him back to the game. But Houston barely threw the football. A lot of the teams, TCU, which throws the heck out of the football, and they got rid of the ball really quick. A lot of teams aren't really giving Utah a chance, and they don't have to. And you saw a lot of patience with the running game out of TCU a couple of weeks ago. It's a team that all they want to do is throw it, right? Like they realize that the Utah offense is not very good, and that's the other thing. When you're not scoring, when you're not getting any kind of lead, and you're always playing from behind, then there's no pressure on the other offense. They don't have to open it up. They don't have to throw the ball as much. So there's not as many opportunities for the the defense to really get sacks. There just haven't been. Teams have really, really focused on running the football against Utah. It's blatantly running the football. And what happens, the defense gets tired late in the game because they've been out on the field all night, and you get worn down. And you get, and then you start missing tackles, and you start getting lazy in your gap control, at the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just bust a big run, and that's really kind of what's been happening, with a lot of these defensive plays, with the limitations, with the excessive demands that the defense has been asked to do because the offense has not been producing. I really believe, outside of one thing, the defense has been playing really well, and there's been a lot of missed tackles, and you can attribute missed tackles to guys being tired. I mean, and I know it's like, just suck it up and play, and I'm sure they think that way, but your body doesn't necessarily react that way, when you're tired. And you may not even realize it, but a lot of missed tackles that I don't normally see from the defense. That's the one thing to me that's been more of an issue than anything else.
So this simply leads us to what comes next, right? And BYU, they have stayed clean. They're undefeated. They're atop the conference. They're a top 10 team. And they've answered every question that's been thrown at them. I don't think there's really anything left to wonder about whether or not they're for real. They are. And the numbers say that. Yeah. The data says that. And, Scott, you know this better than anybody. They're going to be smelling the blood in the water, and they're going to come up here to go for the jugular. They know where Utah's at. And after a generation of having their heads kicked in and being made fun of for going independent and not having a conference home, they're going to come up here, ready to roll. What do you hope to see between now and the BYU game, and then during the actual game, to indicate to you from your prism that maybe this thing is about to be turned around?
Well, to start with, what really makes me nervous about this Utah BYU game is this is a group of players at Utah that have grown up without being a part of this rivalry. They don't understand it. They've never played in a game. They don't realize the significance of it. They don't think much of it. And now the coaches do. The coaches understand it, but none of these players has felt it, has been in it. And even when Utah was in the Pac-12, it still wasn't the rivalry that it was before. And so now this is a big deal. This is going to continue to be a big deal between these two schools, and I'm a little nervous. The players at Utah. I don't. And a team that's not really been fighting that hard, anyways, are they going to really all of a sudden step it up and go, okay, this is a rivalry game. We got to really get into this one. On the other side of it, so that's a concern. I'm not saying it's going to happen or whatever, but it would concern me. The other thing to me is all the pressure's on BYU. It's that time of the year. It's that one game where, the game gets started and you are a little bit maybe more jazzed up than you normally would be because it is the rivalry. You start pressing a little bit. You get an interception here or there or a turnover, and it just starts going downhill. And, so I could see where it could be one of those weeks where, because it's a lot of pressure when you're 9-0 and a lot of pressure to keep doing it. And rivalry games, funny things happen, and not necessarily the best team always wins. So I could see that scenario happening, and it's a good time, to have another bye week and to kind of maybe collect yourself, and I think there's going to be a lot of pretty harsh talk about. We're going to play the guys that really want to play and really want to be here and really want to be out on the field, and so you may see some changes in what's happening with Utah. And if there ever is a moment. If there ever is something to play for in your program and you're having a struggling year, it's a rivalry game. It really is. It can, it's not going to take the sting of the huge disappointment this season is, but it can take some of it away from what's been a really abysmal year.
So how much of this, Scott, is fixable and coachable? How much of it is on the coaches? How much of it's on the players? And then simply put, as a guy that played it at the highest of levels, how do you turn a train that feels like it's so far off the track around in just 12 days? Like, dissect that for me.
Well, a lot of those things that I told you about coming back to the football and focusing and not going off sides and better ball location and throws, all of that stuff is fixable. And it's all of these fundamental things. And, Coach Shula made us form tackle every day. First thing we did in practice, so the quarterback, I'm tackling Dan Marino. Well, I didn't get to tackle him. He said, I don't care, you're not tackling me. I'll tackle you, but you're not tackling me. And it was all about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals of football were driven into us every single day. And when you get into a weird situation, 1995, we started 0-3, and it could have fallen off a cliff. We really just circled the wagons, and it was even a bye week, and we focused back on those fundamental things of football and really re-emphasized all of it and really looked at the personnel we had and said, how do they best work? And let's not try to do everything. Let's just try to do the things that we can do well. And that's what I see happening. Now, you can't fix a freshman quarterback. He's still a freshman, but there's a lot of other things you can fix around it, and maybe sitting him for a little while might not be a bad thing, but 100% of this is fixable, and really it's all in your brain, Spence. I mean, it's a mindset. It's a mindset about how you prepare, and that's the thing that has to be fixed.
Whew. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll end on this. From your perspective, because for me, and we all just kind of react off our own inner circle, and I'm sure some of this is cognitive dissonance and echo chamber based off of who I interact with. And, I have a lot of friends who are boosters and season ticket holders and donors. And obviously, as an alum, you're connected in the community. I don't recall a time where I feel like the fan base has been so down about a season. And part of this probably was unrealistic expectations in retrospect. I mean, for me, and I'm sure you did the same, I always prefaced any Ute projection with if Cameron's under center and healthy. And obviously that hasn't been the case. I don't think we can be so reductive as just to say this is a Cam thing anymore, because certainly that's probably the biggest piece of it, but there are other pieces as well. When's the last time, from your vantage point, it felt as dire as it seems like it feels right now surrounding this team?
It might be back when I was playing here. I mean, in the '80s. I mean, there's a bad feeling, and it's accentuated because BYU's doing so well. It just makes it worse. It just does. Can you turn around the last 4 games of the season? You sure hope so. I think the thing that's shocking to me is I felt like Utah was a really solid team at every position, and solid with the depth, and because depth is such an important part, because you're going to have attrition and having guys come in, and you've seen some injuries, and some guys have really stepped up at a lot of different positions and played, and yet that quarterback position is just such a bugaboo. If you're going to have a great year, boy, you got to get a guy under center who stays healthy and performs at a high level. But for me, I was trying to be super objective and just, okay, I'm going to look at, I'm not going to try to be the Ute fan. And I just said, this is a deep team. This is a good team. The problem is you still have to play. And there have been some positions, the tight end position massively underperforming, the wide receiver position massively underperforming. Mekhi Bernard's been phenomenal, but is there any other running back there? The offensive line has actually performed fairly decent, Quarterback position has been, C minus-ish or even lower. And so, yeah, you always know the season's not going to end the way you think it is or play out, because guys have to perform and they have to play. And it's just, the worst possible things I think could happen this year have happened. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one to swallow. And you just, the one thing is you can change things quickly, and you can because of the NIL and because of the transfer portal. And so you're not stuck in this challenge forever. You can have quick turnarounds, and there are probably some things that are going to have to change. There's some players that are going to need to get in here if this is really going to get back on track.
I lied to you, Scott. I have one more because I wanted to get your thoughts on. I wanted to get your thoughts on just a dynamic that I was wondering aloud about earlier. Morgan Scally, who is in line to take over for Kyle when Kyle decides that he's done. And like I continue to say, I have no insight there, but people that know in a way that I wouldn't have wondered aloud if this is it for Coach Witt. What do you think's going through Morgan's head? Because there's actually a way to spin this in a positive direction. It's always tough to take over for a legend, ask Kalen DeBoer. But if this train continues to go in the wrong direction and Morgan is able to get it back on track next year, maybe it will inspire some confidence that Utah's made the right succession plan decision. How do you think Morgan's digesting all this right now?
I think that whole dynamic, Spence, is hard. When it was announced, I get why they announced it. It's for recruits. It's to show continuity in the program. It's also to people were courting Morgan to leave. I know specifically USC was going to pay him a lot of money to leave. So it was a way to kind of ensure that he sticks in the program. But the thing is it's a funky dynamic because as a player you go, well, I know Coach Witt's going to leave sometime. And so I think you could get to where, I'm not really following Coach Whittingham anymore because he's not going to be around. He's really kind of the guy, but he's kind of not the guy. It could get kind of odd. And I mean, I thought of this scenario, maybe Morgan went to Kyle and said, "Hey, look, I don't think I want Andy as the coordinator." I mean, there's a lot of different, so let's get rid of him now. And I'll move in a different. And I'm just speculating here. I'm just saying there's just a lot of scenarios that could play out. The bottom line, Coach Whittingham's a really good coach that done a phenomenal job at Utah. Morgan has been an outstanding coach, player. If there's anyone that should be the coach at Utah, it should be Morgan. And when you go into a situation, you believe you have all the answers. And I guarantee you Morgan Scally believes he has all the answers. And I guarantee you that he'll take from Coach Whittingham what he likes, but he's also going to be Morgan Scally and who he really is. And it's proven to be a really good coach. And that's not a bad thing. Kyle learned from people and, he wasn't Urban Meyer, but he learned a lot of things from Urban or Coach Mack. And so I think Morgan is really feeling like, man, I can't wait to get my hands on the steering wheel here. I can't wait to be the guy because I'm sure he's very ready for this, and I'm sure he has his own ideas and his own thoughts. But I do think it would be hard right now to kind of look. You're killing a program here that I'm going to inherit. I mean, I could see that. Being kind of a sticky point between the two of them as they're kind of waiting for Kyle to decide to end.
All right, Scott. Well, good stuff today, man. I appreciate the time, and we'll see if they can get it turned around. Have a good day, okay?
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Scott Mitchell. Yeah, it's not great. Not great, Bob. Not great. So we'll catch a break, get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Don't forget, Monday Night Football. It's the Steelers and the Giants from Pittsburgh. We'll be on our radio station if you're looking for the World Series, Game 3 of the Yankees and the Dodgers. Check out 960. But we roll on. Coming up next right here on ESPN 700. You got the sounder. Drive at 5 is brought to you by my good friends at Flanker. You can get game day ready at Flanker Kitchen and Sporting Club at the Gateway, your ultimate destination for pro and college football watch parties. Follow them on social media at Flanker SLC for exclusive game day specials and more. Reservations can be made at flankerslc.com. All right, of course, on a Monday, after a college football and pro football weekend behind us, that has carried the bulk of our show. Did a little RSL with Matt Crooks today. Real Salt Lake in action tomorrow in MLS Cup playoff action against Minnesota. Go to rsl.com. Maybe some tickets left and available. Utah Hockey Club, Belle Fraser, the Utah Hockey Club, after a very fast start to the season, have kind of come back down to earth. They've lost their last 3. Jazz in action tonight. Jazz Mavs did a little jazz with Tom Haberstroh. But, of course, Scott Mitchell, who hopped on the show last segment, a very honest and blunt assessment as far as the state of the Utah football program after really what I consider to be a stunning loss at Houston, 17-14. We did our Big 12 power rankings earlier. I have Utah at 15. The only team beneath the Utes for me right now is Oklahoma State, who have been, if it's even possible, even more disappointing than Utah football so far. You know what's odd, as we talked about a little bit earlier, I get a lot wrong. Certainly with this job, you like to be right, and sometimes I'm right. Oftentimes I'm not. I'm not sure that I've ever been more wrong than I've been about a team than how wrong I've been about Utah football from the start. Now, this is wild to me. Preseason media poll, there were 5 teams that received first place votes. 5 teams of the Big 12 in the preseason media poll received first place votes. They were the following: Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Arizona are the other 4 teams. If you remove Kansas State, who have been very good, from that equation, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Arizona are combined 3-17 in Big 12 play. I mean, we all whiffed on this one, man. And shout-outs to Kalani Sitake, shout-out to Aaron Roderick and Jay Hill, and the very impressive performance of the BYU Cougars this season. They're 8-0 after picking up another win over UCF. They were a slight underdog on the road, and they were able to get it done. Jake Retzlaff has been awesome. That defense is doing everything that you think Coach Witt's defense should do. We were talking a little bit earlier about the defense for Utah football. I thought Scott's point was really interesting because ultimately, the Utah football defensive metrics still indicate this is a really, really good side of the football for Coach Witt. They're number 2 in scoring. They're number 1 in total. They're number 3 in rushing. They're number 2 in passing. They're number 3 in efficiency. They're the best team in the Big 12 at limiting first downs. They're the best team in the Big 12 at limiting third down conversions. But they're 11th in sacks. They're 16th in fumbles forced. They're 15th in fumbles recovered. And they're 8th in interceptions. They are number 1 in red zone D. They had a couple of really, really strong, goal line stands on 4th down against Houston, but you just can't spin it any other way. And I thought Scott's point, he essentially blamed the offense for all of it and put the lack of pressure on the quarterback and the lack of forcing turnovers on what has been an incredibly disappointing offensive performance. Offensive numbers, I'll just run through a few of them. They're 15th in total offense in the Big 12. There are 16 teams in the Big 12. I know it's confusing. 11th in rushing, 10th in passing, 15th in efficiency, 15th in first downs. They're 15th in third down conversions. They're 14th in fourth down conversions. They're actually first with time of possession, which is bizarre and wild to me. They're 13th in red zone. So really, if you average out the net takeaway is the offense is one of the 3 worst offenses in the Big 12. And the defense is probably one of the 2 or 3 best defenses in the Big 12, maybe along with K-State and Iowa State. So, what does that mean it needs to look like moving forward for Utah football to kind of get this thing going? Porter, let me I haven't asked you, because we were doing our Big 12 power rankings earlier. The Mekhi Bernard stuff post-game got a lot of traction. So if you missed it, first of all, you can get sound up on our website, ESPN700sports.com. But Mekhi essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, I know what's going on, but I'm just not going to say it out loud. If I had to guess and take a shot in the dark, I would just think Mekhi would probably talk about quarterback play. Other people have speculated in a way that I'm just not comfortable doing. Do you have any insight as what you believe Mekhi was talking about after the game?
Well, like you, I mean, I'm not comfortable speculating on or putting words in a player's mouth press conference. Frankly, people who are speculating what he meant when he very clearly said out loud that I'm not going to tell you what I mean because I don't want to put that out into the space. The people who are speculating are being kind of irresponsible, in my opinion. But the speculation is, probably around the pretty obvious issue that we see with this team, which is without Cam Rising, there is no life with the offense. The defense is pretty good. Obviously, there were special teams issues that start to compile as the team is losing games. But the issues with this team, to me, are pretty cut and dry. Yes, they're complicated in how they're happening, the storylines around them, but it's pretty simple that the guy under center is just not ready. The guy that's supposed to be under center is hurt, and that's where Utah sits right now. I don't really think it's excusable to be at that point when you're a Division I football program with that much on the line in 2024, but that is where we sit, and I'm not going to speculate on what Mekhi meant, because from my perspective, I think it's pretty clear what's going on, and that is at the quarterback position.
The latest bowl projections, and you can find these all over the place, and Kyle Bonagura, who's a consistent guest on this radio show, Mark Schlabach as well, both from ESPN, up on the .com page today. They both have Brigham Young in the CFP as the number 4 seed. Essentially with that first-round bye because they believe BYU is going to win the Big 12. Now, the FPI, ESPN FPI, actually still favors K-State slightly to win the Big 12 championship. It actually goes K-State, Iowa State, then BYU. No, excuse me, Colorado. BYU is 4 in the FPI. So certainly they still have some work to do. But, man, I'll tell you what, don't think for a second that everyone down about 40 miles south of where you can hear my voice right now, everybody down south is looking forward to this opportunity, and they're going to sense blood in the water, man. And they're going to come up here. I mean, look, for folks that have followed this rivalry game over the years, and certainly what has been a generation of Utah football passing BYU in relevance with Big 12 championships, and then the head-to-head record just is what it is over the course of like 17, 18 years. And I don't do the whole, like, big brother, little – you guys can argue online, okay? Go be miserable online if you want. I'm not into that stuff. But I do know that there is this sense of, like, a superiority complex that BYU fans think Utah fans have as a result of a generation of Utah football passing BYU in most metrics. And now with BYU rolling, they're going to come up here. They're going to go for the jugular, man. Like, there's no doubt. So I will be really curious. As you know, I am a sports reflects real life guy. I will be really curious as to how this group of young men respond over the next 12 days to see if they still have any pride in playing for this program, to see if there's any fight left. Because I'll tell you what, man, I don't know what you guys saw, but from my vantage point, Coach Witt looked gassed after the game. He looked tired. He looked frustrated. And the players had their heads down, of course, as you would with your 4th straight loss to an opponent that most people believe is the worst team in the conference. Road or away, you don't lose that football game. I mean, I said on Friday, looking for a shutout, didn't get that. Defensive performance was pretty solid. They had a couple 4th down goal line stands. They created a couple of turnovers. So, like, defensively, I thought they showed themselves well. It was Brandon's INT that gave them the field position that they were able to capitalize on and head on down to kick that game-winning field goal. But outside of a really solid performance from the defense, there was not a lot to hang your hat on. Cole missed a couple of kicks, special teams not where they need to be. And, you know, the interior of the O-line had a tough time opening up holes consistently for Mekhi Bernard. And it's clear that the contingency in the case of Cameron Rising going down once again was a failure. It just was. It was last year, and it has been this year. I'm not putting this on Isaac, 18-year-old true freshman. He was trying to figure out Farmington's secondary less than a year ago. He's going to have a tough time moving to P4 major college football. Brandon looked okay. I thought it was interesting to hear Scott mention that he would go with Brandon moving forward. Only time will tell. As I said last week, I have a hard time trying to understand what Mike Bajakian is going to find in a Andy Ludwig offense that Andy Ludwig couldn't find himself. And game one didn't look a whole lot different, at least not from my vantage point. But bye week, and then it's BYU, and down the stretch we go, because that schedule moving forward is not that. Kind of a fun little Monday night as you kind of get over the weekend that was. Probably disappointing for a lot of you. A little Monday night football. It's going to be the Steelers and the Giants. Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson. Then also game 3 of the World Series, Dodgers, Yanks. In the Bronx, Yanks need all 3 at home. It's going to be Walker Buehler taking on Clark Schmidt. I like having Clark on the bump in this situation. He's a gritty pitcher, underrated. The Yankees have better starting pitching, and that might be it. I mean, ultimately, every time it's close late, I just have no confidence in the bullpen of the Yanks. Is Aaron Judge A-Rod? Is Aaron Judge basically a more likable Alex Rodriguez? My man cannot get it done in the postseason.
Yeah, maybe. He might be, but that's not the worst guy to have as your, cherry on top, right? Like, you're in the World Series. Yeah, you're down a couple of games, but if Aaron Judge all of a sudden starts lighting it up, it's almost like just extra on top for the Yankees fans now that you're kind of expecting it to be minimal.
Yeah, man, they're going to need him to wake up if they want to get back in this thing. Also, Donovan Mitchell is back in New York. Once upon a time, a big storyline. Cavs, Knicks, MSG. And from a local standpoint, we get a little Utah Hockey Club action taking on San Jose, and the Jazz are in Dallas to take on the Mavs. RSL's turn tomorrow, taking on Minnesota as the playoffs are here. All right, buddy boy, time for Monday Night Football. What comes our way on a Tuesday show?
As you mentioned, Monday Night Football, we'll recap that. Sam Brockis of Sumer Sports recapping some NFL playoff or some NFL action from the weekend. We'll talk some hockey. Utah Hockey Club, they got a game tonight, as you mentioned. We will have a player of note, a standout from tonight's game on the show with us tomorrow. Tim McMahon stops by for the NBA Daily Assist, and still working on schedules because this is a guy who, you got to reach out to his people. You got to go through a few different folks to get in and get it dialed in, but hoping to have one Bill Riley in studio with us on a Tuesday show.
Wow, the voice himself. Also, a small chance I will be interviewing Dave Blitzer tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe.
So
we're gonna put that. What do the kids do? They manifest. They just put it out in the universe.
Yeah,
and
just
hope
say it
that without working for anything. You just get whatever you want.
Just say it's going to happen, and it will.
Okay, maybe Dave Blitzer tomorrow. Oh wait, excuse me, Dave Blitzer tomorrow.
There you go.
Manifested. All right. I don't even want to go any deeper into that direction. That'll do it. Special thank you, Belle Frazier, Tom Haberstroh, Matt Crook, Scott Mitchell. For any sound you may have missed, website ESPN700sports.com. Definitely download our mobile app, ESPN 700 app. You can get that in the App Store, Google Play Store. Then check out our podcast page. We have our own. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Give a little rating or review if you have time tonight while you're watching these games. Say nice things. Give us all the stars. You will be eternally blessed. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy a little Monday Night Football, some World Series, some Jazz, some Hockey Club. We'll talk to you on a Tuesday show. As always, you can get that right here on ESPN 700.